Chapter 893. Humph. Playing tricks on me. Li Ziyuan's hands trembled uncontrollably as cold sweat trickled down his temples. Do you think you can fool me by taking off the handcuffs and playing tricks on me? What? You still don't remember that you're dead? Feng Bujue paced back and forth with his hands in his pockets. He lowered his head and muttered, "It seems that you were a very rational person when you were alive. Common sense has been rooted in your consciousness. Even if you're now a ghost, you still enough." Li Ziyuan interrupted Feng Bujue. "I'm warning you, don't play any tricks. This is the police station. Do you think you can fool me and run away?" "Police station?" Feng Bujue turned his head and glanced at him. "Are you sure?" As soon as he said this, Li Ziyuan's mind buzzed. In the next second, the surrounding scenery changed. The originally bright space of more than 10 square meters suddenly turned into an empty, dark environment. "This is no longer a police station," Feng Bujue continued. "It was converted into a warehouse to store old electrical appliances more than 10 years ago." He paused for a moment. Because this building was built in the last century, there were many original defects in the design. As a result, many new equipment couldn't be installed. So, 17 years ago, 5 years after your death, this police station was moved to another location. The current office is 2 kilometers away from here. Li Ziyuan still didn't believe Brother Zhu. This is impossible. Just as he was talking to himself, Feng Bujue walked back to the table. At this time, the table had become a horizontal refrigerator, and the chair they were sitting on was an air conditioner and a microwave. By the way, Brother Zhu pointed at a stack of old newspapers on the refrigerator, which was the document that Sheriff Li had just taken. He said, "The police nowadays don't use paper documents to make statements. They only need to take a tablet, scan the suspect's fingerprints, iris, and voice, and have all the information. After you're done, use this tablet to ask questions in the form of a video and record them together." "Ha!" Suddenly, Li Ziyuan laughed. It was a strange laugh. "Understand? You hypnotized me. Everything I saw was an illusion you hypnotized me to see. Yes, it must be like this. When you told me the ghost story before, you unknowingly did it to me. Stop deceiving yourself and others." Feng Bujue interrupted him. "I don't have that kind of convenient ability. If I did, I would have been the male lead of a 2-dimensional movie 10 years ago." His lines were too jumpy and lacked integrity. Saying it at such a time would make the other party unable to respond. Your doubts about these abnormalities are actually very easy to answer. Feng Bujue cast a sharp look at Li Ziyuan. "Instead of looking for the answer on me, why don't you try it on yourself?" He raised his hand and put up a finger. "First, please recall the specific date today." Today is December 5th, 2033. Li Ziyuan murmured. "Don't you think it's strange?" Feng Bujue didn't let him finish his sentence. "On a December night, I went out in a short suit." Before he finished, Li Ziyuan was stunned. This matter was indeed inexplicable, but Li Ziyuan didn't understand. Before the other party mentioned it, why did he overlook such an obvious abnormality? "The date in your mind will always stop at December 5th, 2033. Brother Bujue continued, "because that's the day Lu Xiaoya was killed." The name Lu Xiaoya was like a steel nail, directly piercing Li Ziyuan's divine sense. The moment he heard this name, he held his head and knelt on the ground. He pretended to be in extreme pain. "Humph." Feng Bujue looked down at Li Ziyuan with a condescending gaze. "It seems that this name has quite a big impact on you. If I had known this earlier, I wouldn't have had to beat around the bush." As he spoke, he raised a second finger. Then, "Next, please recall again. How did you catch me and bring me to this police station? Where did you see the surveillance video of me?" Goo. Li Ziyuan's mind was in a mess. The severe headache made it impossible for him to concentrate. A large number of messy images poured into his mind and flashed before his eyes. "It's impossible for you to remember, because those details are not in your memory at all." Feng Bujue said, "Police station, case surveillance video, arrest. All of these were made up by your own imagination after you saw me and talked to me." He licked his lips. Think back. From the beginning of the conversation, I was guiding you. Are you new here? I'm the informant. I was the one who called 110. If you don't believe me, you can check the call record. If you don't believe me, you can check the road surveillance. Based on the information I provided, you filled in your memory. Fong Bujue continued. Thus, you made a reasonable inference. No, it's not like that. Li Zuan held his head with both hands and said with difficulty, Nonsense. The only information you know is time, place, and the dying antique shop owner who was attacked. Fong Bujue ignored him and continued in a cold tone. And the conclusion you want to draw is, who is the murderer? He paused for 2 seconds and said, I might as well tell you clearly. The murderer is Lu Xiaoya's ghost. Chi screams a woman in red, a pale face, a hideous face, a painful face, a twisted face, blood, a lot of blood, a large number of sounds and fragments came like a tsunami, sweeping through Li Ziyuan's mind, making him crawl on the ground in pain again. The case 22 years ago wasn't that complicated. Fong Bujue did not stop talking because of Li Ziyuan's reaction. An antique shop owner took a fancy to a woman in the flower shop next door, but the woman did not like him. So, on a winter night, the shop owner killed the woman who rejected him. That night, the first police officer who heard the screams and arrived at the scene was Sheriff Lee. He was a very good detective, and he saw that it was a murder and not a car accident on the spot. He arrested the antique shop owner. However, the shop owner immediately made a threat. He claimed that he knew some important people who could guarantee that he would not be sent to prison and that they could make Sheriff Lee lose his job and his ability to stand in society. Sheriff Lee listened for a while and realized that the shop owner was not bluffing. He realized that what the shop owner said was very likely to become a reality. He wavered. He realized that even if he did the right thing, the shop owner might not be punished, and his own future in life would be lost in this case. Just as he was wavering, the shop owner started to tempt him again. At that time, Sheriff Lee had just gotten married, and his wife's income was higher than his, so he could not raise his head in front of her family. Due to all these reasons, he had compromised. He helped the shop owner to clean up the scene, falsified the evidence, and even taught him what to say when he took the statement. A murder case turned into a traffic accident just like that. Fong Bujue recounted the past with an almost indifferent expression, but Li Zian, who was the audience, was so excited that he was trembling, and his emotions were on the verge of collapse. 7 days later, Brother Zhu paused for a few seconds and said, Lu Xiaoya avenged herself. He smiled eerily. Coincidentally, that day was the day you went to the antique shop owner to get your reward. That malicious ghost tortured her murderer to death in front of you. The reason she did not kill you was because before the shop owner died, you had already gone crazy. At this point, Li Ziyuan suddenly stopped trembling. What's wrong? Do you remember now? Fong Bujue looked at him and asked. Yes. Li Ziyuan stood up from the ground. 2 days later, I committed suicide in the hospital. At this moment, his face was ashen, and his whole body was translucent. And the memory after that is a mess. That's normal. Fong Bujue said, Didn't I already tell you that ghosts like you are in a state of unconscious and formless most of the time? Under the premise that you can't maintain your existence, you won't have any memories. Over the years, have I harmed anyone? Li Ziyuan's tone had become calmer. It's okay. Brother Zhu replied. You're not a malicious ghost, just an earthbound spirit. Only during the 4 major ghost festivals will you have the ability to interfere with the living. Then today is, Li Ziyuan asked tentatively, the Hungry Ghost Festival. Fong Bujue replied. I see. Li Ziyuan nodded. Around here, there's been a similar rumor. Fong Bujue continued. It's said that every ghost festival, there will be gangsters or drunkards who walk alone at night, brought to a police station that shouldn't exist for interrogation by a police officer who appears out of nowhere. The next day, they would wake up in an old warehouse, most likely scared half to death. Then they will go around telling people. But the words of these people are relatively untrustworthy. Even if they call the police won't file a case for investigation. Is that so? Sheriff Lee said thoughtfully. Maybe. I still want to fulfill my duties as a police officer after death. Ha! Don't flatter yourself. Feng Bujue poured cold water on him. 22 years ago, you had a mental breakdown because you saw a malicious ghost kill people with your own eyes. So, your rationality and memory all stopped at that point. As I said earlier, you only remember 3 pieces of information. The time, December 5th, 2033, the place, the antique shop and the flower and bird market on DF Road, the incident, the antique shop manager who was lying in a pool of blood and dying. He shrugged. Your mind couldn't accept the fact that a malicious ghost killed people, so this part of the content was blocked. This led to, all these years, you have been trying to solve the case to untie the knot in your heart. He pointed at his face with his finger. Tonight, the conversation between you and me is the best evidence. If I were someone else, I think tomorrow morning there would be another passerby lying here, scared half to death. Li Ziyuan couldn't refute. He was silent for a moment and asked, So, what do you want now? What do I want? Feng Bujua laughed. Ha! What can I do to you? I'm just a bait. What did you say? Li Ziyuan was puzzled. Xiao Dong, suddenly, Feng Bujua turned his head and shouted to his left. His voice reverberated in the spacious warehouse, echoing back and forth. Xiao Dong. Li Ziyuan was even more confused. He couldn't help but think of another problem. Since he was a ghost, who was the Xiao Dong who brought Feng Bujua's wallet in? If that Xiao Dong was just his imagination, then why did Feng Bujua call him by that name? What Xiao Dong? Don't make a fuss. A few seconds later, a man in a police uniform walked over, accompanied by the sound of voices. He was the Xiao Dong who came in to give Sheriff Li the wallet. But when Li Ziyuan looked at the man's face again, he realized. He didn't know this person at all. Hello. The man walked in front of Li Ziyuan and took off his police cap. I'm not Xiao Dong. I'm Bao Qing. And you are? Li Ziyuan was confused. I'm someone who specializes in dealing with situations like yours. Don't worry. I'll be responsible for sending you to the afterlife. Bao Qing continued. As for him, he rolled his eyes at Brother Zhu. He's a friend of mine. When he heard that I had a mission tonight, he insisted on coming out to see for himself. He even volunteered to be my bait. He shook his head and looked at Li Ziyuan again. Actually, your situation, it's not that complicated to deal with. I don't need anyone else to be the bait. You see, I even borrowed a costume to lure you out. In the end, I wore it for nothing. Li Ziyuan was stunned. He looked at Bao Qing and then at Brother Zhu. Then how did he... Oh, he read my investigation report and related information. That's how he found out about your situation, Bao Qing said. He then spread his hands and sighed. Sigh. It took me a lot of effort to investigate this case. I peeled the cocoon and followed the vines to get to the melon. It was only then that I managed to dig up the case from decades ago. But this kid, I figured out 80% of the information beforehand, and he only deduced 20% of it himself. Yet he's still showing off. What are you talking about? Feng Bujua stood there and flipped his hair. He looked like he was asking for a beating. I'm so eager to help you catch the ghost. I even broke the ghost realm for you. Yet, you're still trying to undermine me. Is that appropriate? Hearing this, Bao Qing put on a serious face and gave Feng Bujua the middle finger without saying a word. Feng Bujua saw this and gave him the middle finger as well. Friendship between men was like this. Two people who insulted each other, mocked each other, and even got into physical altercations were either enemies or best friends. A few seconds later, Bao Qing retracted her middle finger and said to Li Ziyuan, Don't bother with him. I can break your ghost realm in a matter of minutes with my spiritual energy. Unlike him, who only knows how to open his mouth. Hey, why are you saying this to me in such a comforting tone? Li Ziyuan's mouth twitched. It's as if I'm comforted by you saying that I'm weak. On the other hand, Feng Bujua was unhappy again. Your method of exorcising ghosts purely based on physical strength is obviously second-rate. No, third-rate methods. He said seriously, a first-rate exorcist master would find ways to undo the knot in the hearts of the ghosts, so that they can fulfill their wishes and be liberated naturally. All right. Stop pretending to be So pretentious. Bao Qing narrowed his eyes. Why do you think I'm investigating so much? Do I have nothing better to do? If I wanted to use physical strength to get rid of the ghost, I could have just used my spiritual power to blast him into smithereens. Why would I go through all that trouble? He glanced condescendingly at Brother Jew. What I said earlier was about using spiritual energy to forcefully break through the ghost state, not using spiritual energy to forcefully exorcise the ghost. Don't try to change the meaning of my words. Also, he looked at Feng Bujue from head to toe. When did you become a master exorcist? A first-rate one? There's a limit to your shameless boasting, okay? You can't use any spiritual power now. Other than your spirit vision and spiritual touch, you're just an ordinary person. At best, you have the innate yin-yang eye. He raised his hand and gestured. Don't even talk about being a master exorcist. Compared to the average ghost hunter, you're still far from it. Tisk-tisk-k, tsk. Feng Bujue shook his head and quibbled. To judge me based on my abilities, it's really, if we don't talk about spiritual power, aren't you only left with bullshit abilities? Bao Qing interrupted. What's so great about that? Just what you said to Old Li just now. I'm just saying it out loud. They're even calling him Old Li. Li Ziyuan, who couldn't get a word in edgewise, muttered. These two suddenly started talking amongst themselves. They even changed the way they address me. What the hell is going on? Sure, come on. Feng Bujue said. Let's hear the 3 disciplines and 8 points to take note. Do you think that's the name of a dish? Bao Qing roared. I say. Li Ziyuan couldn't hold it in any longer. He tried to stop the two. Both of you, but the two still didn't seem to want to bother with him. They were still talking about each other. Follow the command in all actions. Keep in step and you'll win. Don't take anything from the masses. The masses will support and be happy. Steamed lamb, steamed bear's paw, steamed deer tail, roasted duck, roasted chicken, roasted goose. I say, don't take liberties with women. Get rid of your hooligan habits. Don't abuse the captives. Don't beat, scold, and search their pockets. Red meatballs, white meatballs, soy meatballs, fried meatballs, 3 fresh meatballs, for happy meatballs. The 2 of you better stop before going too far, you bastards. Finally, Li Ziyuan couldn't take it anymore. He roared, I'm in a hurry to reincarnate, you bastards. If you want to kill me, torture me, or destroy me, hurry up, you bastards. Chapter 894. Once he walked into the living room, Feng Bujue noticed that Ruo Yu's gaming hub was lit up. She came online as if nothing had happened. Wasn't she worried that I wouldn't be able to come back? Brother Jew looked at the gaming hub and grumbled. Arthas, who was lying on the sofa, heard Feng Bujue's grumbling and replied, Isn't it just a deal with a small fry? Furthermore, Bao Qing is accompanying me, so what could possibly happen? That's hard to say. Feng Bujue said, What if the ghost is hiding her true power, but you're already back? Why are you still wasting time? Arthas was too lazy to listen to his nonsense. Fine. Brother Jew shrugged and ended the conversation. Then he quickly went to the bathroom to wash up, change his clothes, and lay down in his gaming hub. After setting the option to connect immediately after entering sleep state, he closed his eyes. When he opened his eyes, he was already in the familiar login lobby. TSK. So we're all already in the game. Feng Bujue opened the social tab to look at his teammates' online status. Oh well, there are only a few days left until the preliminary round. I'll try to improve as much as I can. Brother Jew and Bao Qing want to capture the ghost together on the morning of August 27th. In the previous 10 days, under the guidance of Feng Bujue, the captain and coach, the Underworld frontline had improved greatly, and their teamwork had improved greatly. Over the past few days, they had stopped queuing up for team practice matches. Instead, they used the time to queue up for normal scenarios, hoping to get more equipment and skills. Then, Feng Bujue said as he dealt with the email, I'll go queue up for a dungeon on my own. After making up his mind, he sent a group email to his teammates to inform them of his plans. Then, he quickly dealt with the bunch of stuff before him and clicked on the scenario menu. Earlier, he was either doing tactical analysis for the practice match, or at least that was what he thought, or leading the team to clear a team dungeon. Who was leading whom was still up for debate. It feels like I haven't done a solo dungeon in a long time. As he spoke, his eyes moved to the option for single-player survival mode, Nightmare. Ah, I've decided on you. As someone who had seen ghosts both in game and in real life, as someone who had lost his fear for half a year and had been in the supernatural world for months, Fong Bujue had a sense of familiarity with the term nightmare. Nightmare mode, for him, it was nothing. Fong Bujue, level 50, please select the game mode you wish. You have selected solo survival mode, Nightmare. Please confirm. Confirm, generating the scenario. Downloading, please wait. Welcome to Thriller Paradise. A strange and hoarse voice that sounded like a voice changer read out the introduction. Before the voice finished, Fong Bujue lost control of his body, and his surroundings turned into darkness. Download complete. You are currently playing single-player survival mode, Nightmare. A scenario introduction is provided in this mode, and there is a chance of triggering hidden side missions and special world building. Reward for clearing the scenario. Puzzle card X2, playing the scenario introduction soon. The game will start after that. After the familiar voice announcement, the introductory cinematic started. This time, the opening was a video of a character from a first-person perspective. In the blurry image, the first thing that appeared was a wall, a white wall that was inches away. Number 250. A voice came from the left side of the screen. It was a man's voice, and he was speaking English. Number 250. 2 seconds later, the voice repeated the same sentence. Then, the camera panned to the left, and there was a bed, iron bars, and a man in a prison guard's uniform. Phew! The main character sure is lucky to be given a number when he's serving his sentence. Fong Bujue could not help but grumble. The next second, the main character stood up and walked toward the prison guard. The cinematic followed his action and moved from the first-person perspective. How can I help you, sir? Number 250 asked. His voice sounded young, about the same age as Brother Jew, but he was also speaking English. Follow me, the prison guard replied in an impatient tone as he opened the cell door. Then the screen darkened. When it lit up again, the scene had jumped to the next scene. Inside a small room, number 250 sat before a metal table, waiting for something. Not long after, the only door in the room opened, and a middle-aged man in a shiny suit and leather shoes, with his hair combed back and sunglasses, walked in. Hey, don't tell me this is someone from the MIB? When Fong Bujue saw the man's appearance, he could not help but be reminded of a certain movie. Are you Rudy Austin? As soon as the man in the suit sat down, he threw out a question. Yes. Number 250 admitted his identity. May I ask who you are? You can just call me sir. The man in the suit spoke very quickly. I'm here to make a deal. I can make this deal with you or someone else. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, sir, Austin replied. Very good. The man in the suit nodded slightly with a blank expression and continued. Mr. Austin, you're 24 years old this year, right? I'll be 25 next month, Austin replied. For a criminal sentenced to life imprisonment, you're a little too young. The man in the suit leaned forward a little. Don't you think so? It seems that your deal can get me out of prison early. Austin's performance was relatively calm, and his inference was quite reasonable. That's right. The man in the suit continued. The content of the deal is very simple. He paused for half a second, then said, Now, there's a government scientific research project that needs a group of grassroots operators. As long as you're willing to be the operator of this project, then, after a month, you'll be free. After saying this, he quickly added, Of course, this position is undoubtedly dangerous and it's life-threatening. He said bluntly, If you survive, you can shorten the sentence of decades. Most of the younger lifers can leave prison alive to just 30 days. It depends on whether you're willing to take this risk. Austin heard this and was silent for more than 10 seconds before he said, What project is this? You have no right to ask this question, and I have no right to answer you, the man in the suit replied. Who are you? FBI? CIB? Austin asked again. I don't want to repeat what I just said, the man in the suit said. I don't want to waste time here with you. He stood up, turned his head, and said, Prison guard, open the door. Wait. Austin saw that the man was about to leave and finally panicked. I want to go. As soon as he said this, the screen went black again and the scene changed again. You really have guts. Fong Bujue took the opportunity to ridicule. This is obviously a conspiracy. If you go, you'll die. After the scene changed, a corridor appeared on the screen. The four walls of the corridor were made of metal, and the lighting equipment was embedded in the ceiling. The white light was very bright, but the space gave off an inexplicable sense of oppression. At this time, the camera was slowly moving forward from Austin's point of view. In front of him were two men wearing orange jumpsuits, not tight-fitting, but rather loose-fitting jumpsuits. Both of them had buzz cuts and were handcuffed. Based on this, Austin should be in the same state. Stop. After walking for a while, the three of them came to an electronic door at the end of the corridor. A voice immediately came from behind them. At this time, Austin turned his head, and then three armed men in full Special Forces uniform appeared on the screen. Buzz, buzz. A few seconds later, accompanied by the sound of an air valve and a mechanical rhythm, the electronic door opened. A metal room with an area of more than 100 square meters appeared in front of them. There were many staff members in white coats and protective masks in the room. At this time, they were busy in front of a large computer connected to the wall. Go! After the door opened, the Special Forces soldier gave another order. The three men in orange, including Austin, continued to move forward until they came to a large metal door in the room. After they stood still, they waited for a minute. Following that, the door opened as well. Behind the large metal door stood three humans and a tall, unknown creature. Brother Ju had seen the unknown creature before. SCP-173. What the F***CK? Fong Bujue saw the thing behind the door and lost his calm. What kind of deal is this? You were tricked into becoming a D-class personnel. His shouting had no effect on the development of the plot. At this time, Austin and the other two D-class personnel were obviously preparing to change shifts with the three people behind the door. However, just as the shift was about to change, the lights in the room went out. About 5 seconds later, the red light of the backup power source lit up, but the SCP-173 behind the door was no longer in place. Then there was a scream not far away. Kacha! Dong! Then there was the clear sound of joints breaking and falling to the ground. It was also at this time that the opening cinematic ended without any sense of awkwardness. Fong Bujue took the opportunity to regain control of his body. Chapter 895. D-grade personnel, or Class_D, was one of the classifications of personnel in the SCP Foundation. They were personnel designated to operate abnormal objects. The rules regarding D-grade personnel in the Foundation were as follows. First, D-grade personnel of the SCP project were not allowed to communicate with D-grade personnel of other SCP projects. Second, D-grade personnel were recruited from prison inmates, with death row inmates as the preferred choice. Under urgent circumstances, they could be recruited from innocent people or criminals who had committed lesser crimes. Third, all D-grade personnel had to be executed at the beginning of every month, and replacements had to be prepared. Fourth, all D-grade personnel had to undergo a psychological test at least once a day, usually at 1800 hours. Those who failed to comply with this requirement would be executed. Those who failed the test would also be executed. Fifth, in any supernatural event, it was recommended that all D-grade personnel be executed, including those who had basic communication with them. At that moment, the character that Fong Bujue had loaded into, Rudy Austin, was obviously a Grade D member that had been recruited. As expected of nightmare difficulty, it's already a life and death crisis. After Brother Ju regained his mobility, he immediately said, there are two more pressing problems. First, my hands are still cuffed. Second, SCP-173 has gone out of control and is killing people in this room, and I could become a victim at any time. With that in mind, his eyes darted around. Inside the room, dozens of people were running around in panic. Under the red light, twisted faces could be seen. Fleeting gunshots, rising and falling screams, broken bones, and the sound of people falling to the ground, all of this indicated that SCP 173 was still in this room, and it was accomplishing a miraculous feat at an extremely fast speed. It's here. Finally, Feng Bujue spent several seconds to lock onto SCP-173's position. Perhaps a lot of people have already forgotten about SCP-173's design, so I won't list out the details of the project here. Simply put, it's a huge creature made of concrete and steel. Once you stop eye contact with it, it will attack. The target of the attack should be random, and the method is to teleport to the target's side and snap its neck. Everyone, don't panic, I've got it. As long as you maintain eye contact. Feng Bujue stared at 173 and immediately shouted. But the researchers and the other prisoners ignored him. No one turned back to look at the monster. They just ran out the door. TSK. A bunch of idiots. Feng Bujue spat unhappily. They deserved to die. Although he was cursing, he didn't stop his actions. When he was watching the opening cinematic, he had memorized the positions of most of the people in the room. Therefore, he didn't hesitate to move to the side behind him and successfully stepped on a corpse within 5 steps. Feng Bujue wasn't sure if the body belonged to a Special Forces soldier. Even if it did, he wasn't sure if the soldier had the key to the handcuffs. However, he still squatted down and used his hand to feel around. This time, Brother Ju was very lucky. In the previous 10 seconds of chaos, SCP-173 really did kill the person with the key to the handcuffs. Furthermore, the first body that Brother Ju touched was this person. The key to the handcuffs was much smaller than a normal key, so it was easy to tell. Feng Bujue took the key from the man's pocket and undid the handcuffs on his hand. Very good. Brother Ju didn't throw the handcuffs away. Instead, he put the handcuffs and the key into the pocket of his jumpsuit in case he needed them. This saves me the trouble of dislocating my hand. As he talked to himself, he used to find the M16 automatic rifle next to the victim's hand and held it in his hand. I can't. My eyes are so sore. After doing all this, Feng Bujue hadn't blinked for almost a minute. Even though he couldn't look at the game menu, he could guess that not blinking for a long time would lower his life points. Therefore, 2222, Brother Ju picked up the M16 and fired a few shots at SCP-173. Then, he turned his head and blinked before running toward the exit. The reason he fired the gun was obviously not to kill SCP-173 because he knew normal weapons wouldn't be able to do anything to SCP-173. Even nuclear weapons might not be able to destroy it. Feng Bujue's real reason for firing the gun was to attract the attention of the others. The people who were desperately trying to escape the room had already opened the electronic door of the exit and were now scrambling to squeeze out. The few shots that Feng Bujue fired had attracted their attention for a short period of time. This was human instinct. When we were in danger, 95% of our actions were instinctive. For example, when they heard gunshots, most people's first reaction was to curl up, lower their heads, and try to cover their heads with their hands. At the same time, they would quickly turn their heads to look toward the source of the sound. That was the first reaction, and the second reaction varied from person to person. Some people would quickly check to see if there were any holes in their body. Some people would move away from the shooter after confirming the shooter's position. And some people would move their eyes to where they were hit by the bullet. Feng Bujue used the reaction of the crowd to successfully make some people in the room give him their sights. Using this opportunity, he charged forward with his gun. Using the deterrent effect of the weapon in his hand and a burst of momentum, he forced his way through the crowd and ran into the corridor. Main mission has been triggered. The moment he passed through the electronic door, the system notification came. At this time, Brother Ju finally had the chance to look at the game menu. Take out an anomalous project that is being evaluated in the facility out of the base. Note, any item that is being evaluated by the Foundation for further research and special containment value will be cataloged as anomalous. What? Feng Bujue originally thought that this was a scenario similar to SCP-173, a first-person horror puzzle-solving game. So the main mission should be something like escaping from base. He did not expect that, He would have to find a certain item and bring it out. Important note, your inventory, equipment, skills, and sorcery weapons have all been locked. Your basic physical fitness has been adjusted to Rudy Austin's level. The next second, another voice message came. Humph. I noticed a long time ago. Brother Jew was not surprised by this message. When he confirmed that this was a role-playing scenario, he had already guessed this would happen. Hum. Less than 10 seconds after Feng Bujue ran into the corridor, the loudspeakers all over the base emitted a shrill, buzzing sound. Then came a mechanical announcement. Due to multiple containment measures failing and reports of casualties, this dim_sector has been completely locked down. All personnel are requested to evacuate to the emergency shelter immediately. Chapter 896. As someone who was familiar with the setting of the SCP Foundation, after Feng Bujue heard the broadcast, he immediately understood many things. First, it was dim_sector. Based on Brother Jew's understanding, sector stood for a large facility with many special functions, usually used to house safe and Euclid-grade SCPs, and dim was the abbreviation for dim_modal. This prefix meant that the Foundation's facility is used to research and isolate those SCPs with special spatial powers, such as SCPs that can warp and jump through normal space. From this keyword, two things could be concluded. 1. The scale of this base had to be very large. 2. This base housed at least one SCP project with spatial powers. 2. The sentence, many containment measures have failed and there have been reports of injuries and deaths, was a very clear hint. Obviously, other than SCP-173, there were at least 2 other SCPs that had gone out of control at this facility. The power outage that happened earlier was probably caused by the other projects going out of control, and the chain reaction caused by this incident was hard to predict. Who knew how many SCPs would have failed because of that 1 second of power outage? As I expected, this is so different from that game. Feng Bujue mumbled to himself after running down the corridor for a while. The game that he mentioned was a doujinshi game, SCP-173, that was made more than 40 years ago in Brother Jew's time. Even though the game was a masterpiece, it was still a low-budget game, and in many ways it was simplified. Be it the details of the environment, the size of the map, the number of NPCs, the number of SCPs, the overall difficulty, or the plot, the SCP world that was created by the system of Thriller Paradise was obviously much bigger and more complicated. Phew! I finally found it. After running down the corridor for a full 5 minutes, Feng Bujue finally arrived at the stairwell. Along the way, there were more than a dozen forks in the corridor, each with a corresponding sign at the corner. There were also many arrows in the corridor that indicated the direction of the stairs, so Brother Jew couldn't have gone the wrong way. By the way, this base is ridiculously large. Brother Jew gasped for air as he walked to the electronic door leading to the stairwell. The distance between the laboratory where SCP-173 is locked up and this stairwell is more than 360 meters. Furthermore, the signs of the forks in the road indicated that, at the end of each road, there was a space for the SCP project. This floor is conservatively estimated to be tens of thousands of square meters. As he muttered, he pressed a red button next to the electronic door. After a buzzing sound, the door opened, revealing the stairwell at the back. The lights in the stairwell were also red, exactly the same as the rest of the place. At this moment, a few researchers in white coats ran down the stairs from the upper floor. When they passed by Brother Jew, they only glanced at the D-grade personnel with a panicked expression, but they didn't say anything. It looked like there was something else that scared them more than the armed criminals. So the emergency shelter is down there. Feng Bujue made this judgment based on the route that these people took. That makes sense. Once certain projects are lost, they have to be dealt with using nuclear weapons. Escaping from the ground or the air is meaningless. The only way to survive is to hide underground. Just as he was deep in thought, the electronic door behind him opened again. 1 second later, a researcher ran out from the door and rushed down the stairs. Hey! When Feng Bujue saw this, he He immediately went up and stopped the person. He pointed the gun at him and asked, "Is the emergency shelter down there?" "Yes, yes." The researcher looked at the gun and replied nervously, "Where are the anomalous projects in this base?" Feng Bujue asked again. The person hesitated. 222. Feng Bujue raised the gun and fired a few bullets at the ceiling. Then, he pointed the gun at the person's chest and said, "I hope you can understand. Under the current situation, I have the courage, the ability, and the reason to do anything." The researcher gulped and looked at the stairs that led to the 2 floors. After making sure that there was no one around, he lowered his voice and said, "With my clearance, I can't touch the anomalous projects. There are many areas in the base that I can't go to. What I can tell you is the 1st, 2nd, and 4th basement shouldn't have what you're looking for." Before he could finish his sentence, he heard a strange buzzing sound coming from the other side of the electronic door. The researcher was shocked and said, "It's here. Quickly run, or you'll die too." Hearing that, Feng Bujue let go of the person and moved the gun away. The researcher ran down the stairs without looking back. Brother Ju stood where he was and said calmly, "Tissa, what's there to be afraid of?" He looked at the closed electronic door behind him. It won't open on its own. Feng Bujue knew very well that the buzzing sound was the sound of SCP-173's body rubbing against the wall, but SCP-173 did not have the intelligence to flip the switch. "Let me see, this is..." As he said that, he moved his eyes to the sign next to the electronic door and saw the words B2. "Oh, this is the 2nd basement." As he said that, his mind turned, and the signs next to the fork in the road earlier flashed in his mind. "Okay, this floor does contain known SCP projects. There are no anomalous projects here." As he thought about this, he took a step forward and headed downwards. After dozens of steps and a 180-degree turn, he arrived at the electronic door on the 3rd basement floor, B3. However, there was no red button protruding from the side of the door. Instead, there was a card reader. "Should I wait?" Feng Bujue immediately thought. "If the people on this floor haven't all left yet, then I only need to wait here for a while, and someone will open the door from the inside. Then I'll use my gun to force them to hand over their access card and enter this floor." In the end, he only waited for 2 seconds before giving up on this idea, because in these 2 seconds, he heard a beep sound. The sound came from above, which meant that the electronic door on the B2 floor had been opened at this moment. However, after the door opened, there was no other sound. Whether it was the sound of footsteps or breathing, there was no sound at all. Feng Bujue soon realized something. He suddenly turned around and widened his eyes. In the same second, SCP-173 appeared in front of him. The distance between the two was less than 1 meter. A normal person would have jumped up in fright when they saw this scene, but Feng Bujue was still able to laugh. "If I turn around half a second later, I'm afraid my neck would have been broken," Feng Bujue said in a relaxed tone. He walked around SCP-173 while staring at him. He walked up the stairs step by step. When he turned the corner, even though he didn't blink, SCP-173 still left his sight. At that moment, Brother Bujue didn't hesitate to turn around and stare. As expected, SCP-173 teleported behind him and was once again stared by him. "Sigh, I don't know what's going on. Did everyone in B2 die? How'd it end up here?" Feng Bujue stared at the enemy without blinking. He reached behind him and touched the button of the electronic door. After the door opened, he walked back into the corridor of B2. It wasn't until the door automatically closed and blocked his sight that he blinked. Then, he stood where he was and listened carefully. This time, there was no sound from the other side of the door. The buzzing sound didn't come again either. This guy, Feng Bujue, quickly came to a conclusion. It must have accidentally touched the button when it was moving along the wall. His guess was correct. SCP-173 wouldn't voluntarily press the button of the electronic door. The opening of the door was a coincidence. No matter what, it shouldn't be chasing after me anytime soon. After a few seconds, Feng Bujue left the electronic door and walked slowly down the corridor. "I'll just walk around this floor for now. His strategy and actions were always calm and rational. Like the sudden accident in the stairwell. If it was anyone else, they might have died, but he handled it methodically. First, he didn't follow his usual logic of going down, but instead chose to turn back. This was because he didn't know whether the door in B4 used a button or a card reader. If he needed to use a card to enter that floor, he would have to go down another floor. However, the situation in B5 was also unknown. In the stairwell, every time he moved down one floor, SCP-173 would leave his sight, and every time SCP-173 left his sight, the player would have to face a fatal threat. It was to minimize this risk that Brother Jew had returned to B2. Secondly, there was another reason why Fong Bujue returned. He had memorized all the signs on both sides of the 360-meter corridor. Therefore, he was certain that other than SCP-173, there were no other threats on B2, as long as he didn't provoke them. In conclusion, all of his actions were done after careful consideration and after weighing the pros and cons. In a dangerous situation, Fong Bujue displayed a skill that was enough to shock any bystander. 3 minutes later, Fong Bujue arrived at B2's staff break room. Although it was a staff break room, there was also an SCP project here. Project number, SCP-294, target level, Euclid, Special Management Procedures. There are no standard suppression measures recorded for Project SCP-294. However, only personnel with Level 2 or above security clearance are allowed to come into contact with it. SCP-294 is currently stored in the staff break room on the second floor. It is guarded day and night by 2 Level 3 security clearance guards. Security clearance is required before coming into contact with it. Description: SCP-294's appearance is that of a normal coffee vending machine. The only difference is that it has a touchpad for input. The key layout is similar to a Kodi keyboard, the standard keyboard we use now. After inserting a 50-cent coin into the coin slot, SCP-294 will signal the user to use the touchpad to input the name of any liquid. After the input is complete, the machine will produce a standard 12-ounce paper cup and pour the specified liquid into it. 97 tests have been conducted, including water, coffee, beer, soda, and other beverages, non-consumer products such as sulfuric acid, windshield wiper fluid, and engine oil, as well as substances that don't normally exist in liquid form such as nitrogen, iron, and glass. All of them have been successful. However, the tests on solid objects such as diamonds have ended in failure. SCP-294 seems to only be able to output substances that exist in liquid form. It is worth mentioning that after using it 50 times, the machine will no longer respond to commands. However, after 90 minutes, it seems to replenish itself. Another interesting point is that many corrosive liquids that should be able to corrode normal paper cups seem to be unable to do anything to the cups that the machine distributes. Brother Jew showed an excited smile when he saw the coffee machine. However, he didn't rush to use the machine. His priority was to search the pockets of the corpses in the room. After Fong Bujue returned to B2, he found a lot of corpses in the hallway. As for these corpses, he treated them equally. Whether it was the researchers, security personnel, or D-class personnel, they were all searched by him. Although the items on these people were limited, they still managed to scrape together quite a lot of resources. For example, Level 3 access card. For example, 50 cents and change. For example, pistols, handgun ammunition, submachine gun ammunition, radio walkie-talkies, etc. In short, it was all things that would be wasted if he didn't take them. Okay, it's better than nothing. When Fong Bujue walked in front of the coffee machine, he first counted the number of 50 cents in his hand. 3 is fine. In fact, he was already lucky to find 3 of these coins. D-class personnel usually had nothing on them. The personal belongings of the researchers and security personnel were all stored in a storage room in the facility. Most of the people who brought loose change into the test area were careless and forgot to empty their pockets. Then the first cup, Fong Bujue inserted a coin. After seeing the prompt, he quickly typed a sentence on the keyboard. 1 cup of woody. The things that SCP-294 could produce were not limited to human creations. It might not even be limited to human knowledge. For example, there was once a Foundation agent named Joseph who entered the command, 1 cup of Joe, Joseph's nickname, because he was joking with a friend. Not long after confirming the choice, the agent began to sweat profusely. He complained that he was dizzy and soon fell to the ground. After transferring him to the infirmary, the medical team extracted the contents of the cup distributed by SCP-294. They found that it was a mixture of blood, flesh, and other bodily fluids. It smelled terrible. The most disturbing thing was that the test showed that the DNA sequence of the fabric sent by SCP-294 was exactly the same as Joseph's. There were many similar examples and experiments. For example, 1 cup of music, my life, give me a surprise, and other commands were all responded to by the coffee machine. Although some of the results were not good, Fong Bujue was naturally aware of this. That was why he entered the seemingly nonsensical command, 1 cup of Woody. Buzz. After receiving Brother Ju's command, the coffee machine began to roar, tremble, and shake. This process lasted for about 20 seconds. Then SCP-294's input board showed a sentence. He tisk. It failed. Fong Bujue was unhappy. But shouldn't it say out of range when it fails? What's with he? Although he was disappointed, he still inserted a second coin and entered a cup of liquid that can make SCP-173 unable to move even if it is not directly looked at. Some people might ask, why didn't Brother Ju just enter liquid that can kill SCP-173? Of course, there was a reason for this, because he remembered that there was a record in SCP-294's appendix. Appendix SCP-294-Y. The computer records on the SCP's public server show that the researcher entered something that could destroy SCP-682. The recovered video showed that a bright liquid flowed into the cup. The intensity of the light increased until the camera could no longer record. At the same time, all communication with the facility was cut off. The conclusion of the investigation was that the site had been completely vaporized. The only thing left at the site was a small cluster of trees surrounding SCP-294. Therefore, SCP-294 was quickly transferred to another surveillance site and placed under the same management procedures. The information of the accident was only disclosed to O5 level personnel. Any further experiments involving SCP-682 were prohibited. Those who violated this rule would be demoted to D level. The above appendix was a lesson learned in blood. Perhaps SCP-173's hostility and intelligence toward humans was not as exaggerated as SCP-682's, but it might not be weaker than the latter in terms of strength. Fong Bujue estimated that if SCP-173 created a liquid similar to the one in the previous incident, even if it didn't vaporize the entire base, just vaporizing a room, he wouldn't be able to survive. Therefore, he used a safer and more reliable method. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The machine soon rang again. Not long after, a paper cup fell out of the machine, and a small cup of liquid was immediately poured into the paper cup. Whoa, it's done. Fong Bujue picked up the cup of liquid and placed it on the table in the break room. This is easy. I'll find SCP-173 later and splash it all over its face. After placing the paper cup, Brother Ju returned to the machine and inserted a third coin. If the liquid specified by the second coin couldn't be produced, Fong Bujue's backup plan was a cup of liquid that can prevent my neck from being broken, or a cup of liquid that can prevent me from blinking. But now, he had obtained something that could suppress SCP-173. Therefore, he had another excellent opportunity to try. Chapter 897. Fong Bujue knew that the system would not allow him to use SCP-294 that often. Even if he was optimistic, there would not be more than 10 50-cent coins in the whole scenario. Taking into account his own moral standing, it was not impossible that there would only be 3. Therefore, when it came to the choice of the third drink, Brother Ju gave it some thought. For this part, I have to use reverse thinking and elimination to narrow down the range of options. He scratched his chin and stood in front of the machine. The first thing I have to avoid is getting an out-of-range response when I enter the content. That was not a bad idea. The coffee machine would not refund coins. If the input could not be generated, then it would be a waste of the opportunity, just like when he entered a cup of woody. Let me think. The few options for this thing to have an out-of-range reaction are: Brother Jew instantly tried to think back to the related appendices of this SCP project and try to figure out what was going on. There were a few examples that would cause the machine to respond with an out-of-range response. The first was a specific, solid substance. For example, diamonds. From the results of many experiments, it was not hard to speculate that SCP-294 had a certain cognitive ability. Based on the understanding of this machine, only when carbon reached a specific state, or solid, could it be called a diamond. Therefore, the machine could not generate it. However, if one entered the word carbon directly, the machine would produce a cup of liquid carbon. The second was a substance that is related to the alternate universe or dimension. An example was a cup of antimatter water. This had been confirmed in the appendices, SCP-294-J. Obviously, a cup of woody was the same case. Brother Jew had entered it with a fluke mentality. The third was a substance that no longer exists in this world. For example, a cup of the blood of a saber-toothed tiger, a prehistoric feline that went extinct around 10,000 BC, a cup of the blood of a pigeon, a classic example of a species that went extinct due to human wanton hunting and environmental destruction. It went extinct in 1914, a cup of the blood of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States of America. He died on July 4, 1826, and so on. Substances that fit the above three situations were the first that Fong Bujue had to eliminate. Then, Brother Jew was going to eliminate the scammers. There were many examples of this, and most of them were due to the input of unclear or beyond the user's knowledge. For example, blood of Christ. The results of the experiment were as follows. SCP-294 vibrated and displayed a message. This cup is my blood. Then it put down a paper cup filled with about 0.12 liters of red wine. Another example would be ambrosia _of God. After entering it, he would get a cup of an unknown amber liquid that exuded the fragrance of honey. Its meaning was unknown. Also, it's not SCP-500, but it has similar properties. The recorded result was that SCP-294 released a cup of boiling hot liquid that smelled like coffee. However, after analysis, it was not found to have any healing properties. Of course, the most fraudulent of all was the perfect beverage. Appendix SCP-294-Q-01. Subject entered perfect beverage. The machine delivered a cup of odorless, light purple liquid. After drinking it, the subject seemed to have suffered a great blow and committed suicide. He left behind a suicide note saying, "I am very sorry, but I am now completely disheartened." Yin Zheng objected and asked for the same beverage again. Currently, the composition of the beverage was unknown. In short, if you made this seemingly cool request to the machine, you would receive the same fraudulent substance with unknown meaning. After eliminating these options, Fong Bujue's focus shifted to some of the more successful examples, such as a cup of music, my life, a cup of medical knowledge, and other tangible concepts and knowledge. This kind of conceptual but relatively clear request usually received a more effective and pleasing response, thus allowing the user to obtain something beyond their knowledge. For now, I will decide to seek some kind of knowledge. Fong Bujue scratched his chin and thought about it. Based on my understanding of the appendix, the feeling or the information or skill gained after consuming this kind of substance are all temporary. They will disappear after some time, but this should have something to do with the user's memory and comprehension ability. The disappearance of the feeling is unavoidable, but the information and skill might be retained. Then I have to consider whether this SCP is willing to cooperate with me. Brother Jew immediately thought. The example of a cup of medical knowledge was not an experiment, but it happened under the premise of a large-scale security failure. According to the description of the subject, the machine provided help to save its own life. Other experiments after that also proved that the attempt to obtain the thought juice was not very successful. So, thinking of this, Fong Bujua made up his mind. He boldly typed a line of words on the keyboard. Helping me is also helping yourself. The content of this sentence was not asking for anything at all. In a sense, it was more like a kind of blackmail. However, after a series of buzzing sounds, SCP-294 quickly took out a paper cup and poured a strange purple liquid into it. Fong Bujua picked up the paper cup and examined it. The strange color, the perfect viscosity, and the disgusting smell all revealed the word suspicious. Heh! Brother Ju laughed, raised his neck, and drank the liquid in one gulp. He could do things that normal people could not do without hesitation. Just after he finished the drink, the system notification rang. Due to the effect of the special item, your tidal ability has been unlocked. Not bad. Thank you for your cooperation. Fong Bujua smiled at SCP-294. Then, he threw away the empty paper cup in his hand, walked to the table in the lounge, and sat down. I'll use this. After sitting down, Fong Bujua thought for a moment, then took out a bullet from the pocket of his jumpsuit. He raised one arm, palm up, and used Divine Foresight. The cooldown time of this tidal ability was 90 minutes, so it was better to use it early. As the bullets fell, the content of Brother Ju's divination, the location of the anomalous project, was displayed on the table. It's on the third basement floor. Looking at the bullets on the table arranged into a -3 pattern, Brother Ju had an idea. After receiving this information, he picked up the cup of liquid that can make SCP-173 unable to move without being directly looked at and left the lounge. Chapter 898. It was not convenient to walk around with a paper cup in hand, so after Fong Bujua exited the break room, he headed straight for the stairwell. Behind the electronic door, Brother Ju did not find SCP-173, but there were a few more dead bodies in the stairwell behind the door. Then, like he was calling for a pet, Fong Bujua yelled at the door and winked. The next second, SCP-173's large body really did appear before Brother Ju's eyes. That's great. I was worried that you would run to another floor. Fong Bujua said in a relaxed tone as he took half a step forward and splashed the liquid on SCP-173's body. He waited patiently for a full 30 seconds, but nothing happened. There was no light effect, sound effect, or smell, and SCP-173 did not move. If this was anyone else, they would have panicked and doubted the effectiveness of the liquid. However, Fong Bujua would not do that. He believed that, even if there was no chemical reaction, the effect of the liquid was undeniable. Therefore, he did something very, very daring. He blinked. He stood right in front of SCP-173, inches away from it, and blinked. In the end, nothing happened. At that moment, SCP-173 appeared to have turned into a real sculpture. It did not move at all. In a way, it lived up to its name. Phew! Done. After eliminating this hidden danger, Fong Bujua sighed in relief. However, he did not completely relax because he could not be sure whether the effect of the liquid was permanent or temporary. Then, since you can't teleport anywhere, let me finish the main mission cleanly. As Fong Bujua spoke, he walked around SCP-173 and headed down the stairs. Even though he could return to B2 to investigate or use other SCPs, he did not do so. Fong Bujua, who had plenty of experience in the nightmare scenario, knew very well that in this mode, the best way was to complete the main mission. Fong Bujua used his level 3 access card to swipe it on the card reader next to the electronic door on level B3. In the end, the device replied with a voice. Your authority is not enough to enter this area. Level 3 personnel can't enter? Fong Bujua said. What's the situation on this floor? Something flashed through his mind. Could it be that there's a key to level project here? Keter, Hebrew for crown, the top source substance in Jewish mysticism. Level. Items classified as Keter. Level not only shows strong and active hostility to human life, civilization, and the four-dimensional space, but also have the ability to cause major damage in containment failures. Such items must be cataloged, accommodated according to special containment measures, and destroyed if possible. Most Keter-level projects were senseless, and most of them were still life. An SCP that was only hostile to humans would not be classified as a Keter. A Keter-level project not only had the ability to cause devastating damage to human life and civilization, but to stop it from doing so, the containment agreement had to be large, complicated, and precise. Studying how to destroy Keter-level projects had always been the priority of the SCP Foundation. However, the Keter-level projects under the Foundation's supervision were rarely destroyed by the Foundation. There were three main reasons for this. 1. Some projects were difficult to destroy due to their invulnerability. 2. Some projects were kept because they had great tactical value to the Foundation. 3. Some projects, if destroyed, could cause greater harm to human life, so they were permanently accommodated. That's not right. Normally speaking, would a Keter-level project be placed on the same floor as an anomalous project? Feng Bujue then had a thought. If the project being evaluated is affected by the nearby Keter-level project, then the consequences will be unimaginable. With that in mind, a thought flashed through his mind. Could it be? Indeed, the answer was obvious. Obviously, the anomalous item that Feng Bujue was going to obtain, even though it had not been categorized, it was already seen as an item with the quality of a Keter by the Foundation. Therefore, it was kept in such a high-clearance containment level. Interesting. Feng Bujue deduced at this point, and suddenly became interested. What exactly do they want me to bring out of the base? At the same time, in the command center on the 9th floor underground. This was the lowest part of the entire facility. It had a higher level of security than the emergency shelter on the 8th floor. Everything in the base, including the security and monitoring departments on the 7th floor underground, was also under the supervision of this floor. The wall here was printed with the Foundation's huge black circular logo. Below was the SCP Foundation's motto: to secure, contain, and safeguard. It has been confirmed that the initial power outage was caused by the failure of SCP-100 and SIXS containment system. That guy seems to have woken up from false dormancy. When he killed the security personnel, he happened to contaminate the electrical room. At this time, an agent in a black suit was reporting the situation to another older man in a suit who was dressed very similar to him. Has the Nine-Tailed Fox team received the news? The officer's eyes were fixed on several surveillance screens at the same time. He responded without turning his head. Yes, they're already on the way. They are expected to arrive in 20 minutes, the agent replied. That's too slow, the officer continued. What do they think they are? Firefighters? Do they want to be nuked? Tell them to be in place in 15 minutes. Yes, sir, the agent replied and was about to turn around and make a call. But he suddenly seemed to remember something and said, "Oh, right, sir." He paused for half a second. On the B2 floor, there is a D-class personnel's actions that are a bit concerning. What did he do? The officer asked quickly. He went to use SCP-294, the agent replied. The D-class personnel went to the lounge to have a cup of coffee. Are you going to report to me? The officer responded impatiently. Actually, sir. The agent stammered. What the hell happened to him? The officer replied. Did he order some strange drink and then mutate after drinking it? He seems to have subdued SCP-173 with a drink what? The officer's eyes widened as he turned around. According to the feedback from a security personnel watching the surveillance footage, the agent continued. This D-class personnel used SCP-290 for a total of 3 times. The first time, the machine did not output any liquid. The second time, the machine output an unknown liquid, and he used this liquid to stop SCP-173's actions. As for the third time, the machine also output liquid, and he drank it. However, the effect of the third drink is currently unknown. After the officer heard this, he was silent for a few seconds. Where is this person now? He, the agent hesitated for half a second before responding. He seems to be planning to enter B3. What? The officer was shocked. And he has already obtained access cards and weapons from some of the corpses, the agent continued. However, the access cards he can find do not seem to be enough. So he has now run to B1 and is searching for the corpses on that floor. Get someone to capture him immediately, the officer ordered. If he resists, kill him without mercy. Sir, the agent thought about it. The drink he drank. Eliminating the threat is our top priority. If the conditions permit, after this incident is over, we can retrieve his body and perform an autopsy, the officer replied. Understood. The agent nodded and turned around to leave. The officer quickly turned around and looked at a worker on the right far away. Mark, switch the image of B1 to the main screen. In front of a containment facility on the first underground floor, I found something interesting. Phone Buja looked at the words SCP 738 printed on the door and revealed a meaningful smile. Project code SCP 738 project grade. Keter Special Containment Measures. SCP 738 should be kept in a containment room that is constantly protected by armed guards, remote explosive devices, and audio and video surveillance. Based on the changes observed during the interaction with SCP-738, its power, and unknown limits, the following procedures must be strictly followed. First, when SCP-738 is idle, each of its components must be placed separately. When assembling or disassembling SCP-738, it must be done by using the machinery inside the containment area. If the mechanical assembly system fails, the test must be canceled until an engineer wearing an explosive collar is sent to repair the mechanical system. If the engineer attempts to communicate with any part of SCP-738, the collar will be immediately detonated. Second, if the remote mechanical assembly fails, use a cone bomb installed in advance to disassemble SCP-738, then send an engineer wearing an explosive collar to repair and reset the system. Third, all D-grade personnel used for the test must have low intelligence or slow minds and wear explosive collars. This is to prevent them from knowing too much about SCP-738 and using it to harm the Foundation. Only D-grade personnel with an IQ of 60 or lower can enter the room where SCP-738 is. D-grade personnel can only enter the room for experimental purposes, and they must be guided by the experimenter. From the containment measures, it was clear that this thing was extremely dangerous. Of course, 99% of Keter-grade items were like this. Generally speaking, most of the Keter-grade items were causal weapons that were destructive and hostile to humans. SCP-738 was no exception. The description of this item was not written in detail here because Fong Bujua was going to use it soon. Chapter 899. 5 minutes later, in the command center, sir, it was the same agent who rushed to his superior's side and reported, according to the image sent by B1. That's enough. The superior interrupted him. I saw it. He stared at the big screen in front of him, and his eyes were fixed on a black area. He destroyed all the video and audio collection devices in SCP-738's containment system. Right? Are we going to detonate the cone bomb, sir? The agent immediately replied. What's the point of that? The superior asked without turning his head. Since he knew to destroy all the surveillance devices, it means that he came prepared. Why would he move things to the area where the cone bomb was and operated? The agent was speechless. This incident reminded us that there is still a need to improve the containment system for SCP-738, the superior continued. Installing a cone bomb in the middle of the room is not enough. We did not consider the possibility of when the facility encounters a major crisis, the room without the protection of the security personnel will be invaded. Obviously, the intruder will not be wearing an explosive collar. He paused. Humph. Speaking of which, the actions of this D-grade personnel today have sounded the alarm for us on many levels. In the future, we should add a set of measures to all the SCPs that can be used as a last resort in case the base goes out of control. Then what should we do now, sir? The agent asked again. Aren't the people who went to arrest him already on the way? The superior continued. We can only hope that before they arrive, the D-grade personnel has not completed some kind of transaction that threatens us. That should not be a problem, sir, the agent replied. Generally speaking, the transactions that D-grade personnel will choose at most are things like freedom. The superior laughed. He adjusted his suit. Stephen, what do you think the IQ of this D-grade personnel is? So, this agent's name was Stephen. I have already checked his information, sir, Stephen said as he took out a form from his pocket. As Stephen spoke, he took out a form from his pocket, lowered his head, and read aloud. This D-class personnel's code is 00250. His original name is Rudy Austin, and he's 25 years old this year. After he dropped out of high school, his criminal record was almost uninterrupted until he was sentenced to life imprisonment for first-degree murder last year. According to the test, his IQ is 83, and he has slight violent tendencies. 83. The officer looked back at Stephen and took the form. Oomph. He snorted. This is not right. What's wrong? Stephen asked. Do you think a person with a lower than average IQ, even by American standards, would think of using SCP-294 to deal with SCP-173? Before that, he looked at the form again. Where did he hear about the characteristics of SCP-294? This. Stephen's expression turned even uglier. Could he be? That's right. The officer replied in a low voice. I suspect that he is a spy planted by the cactus insurgent through some means. He stuffed the form back into Stephen's hands. If that's the case, then this information is meaningless. The more Stephen thought about it, the more he felt the officer's words made sense. That's right. A normal D-grade personnel might not even understand the SCP they are operating, let alone other SCPs. But this person, the first time he used SCP-294, he caused the project to fail to generate input content. This means that not only does he understand the characteristics of SCP-294, but he has been testing its limits since the very beginning. In any case, the capture and elimination of this person must be carried out as soon as possible. The potential threat of allowing him to operate in the base is too great, the officer continued. We have to capture or kill him before he comes into contact with more Keter-class projects. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable. At the same time, inside SCP-738's containment facility, due to the current situation of the base, the security personnel who were originally responsible for guarding the place had long disappeared. They had either gone to the underground emergency shelter to seek refuge, or they had died somewhere else. In any case, Brother Jew did not encounter any obstacles along the way. The containment facility's door was opened by the control panel of the external laboratory, so there was no need for a pass. After arriving at the laboratory, Fong Bujue carefully destroyed all the surveillance cameras and audio equipment in the room and laboratory. Then, he started to move the furniture set. He knew very well that when moving the table and chair, he only needed to be careful to avoid the cone-shaped bomb in the middle of the room. To make a long story short, after some work, Brother Jew finally sat down on SCP-738-2, the high-back chair. In front of him was the table labeled SCP-738-1, and the throne SCP-738-3 was behind him. I didn't expect that we would meet in such a manner. Not long after, a gentle and mysterious voice spoke from behind Brother Jew. Fong Bujue turned around and saw a man with black hair. He was a man with an outstanding temperament. He could show the youthful vigor of a 20-year-old, and he could also show the maturity and humor of a 40-year-old. However, it was hard to tell how old he actually looked. Secondly, he was also a very charming man, although objectively speaking, he wasn't considered a handsome man. Based on your tone, you know me? Fong Bujue replied without batting an eyelid. Yes, you're a famous person. The man smiled and replied. Fong Bujue. I see. Brother Jew smiled. Yes, that's right, the man replied. I haven't asked for your name yet. Fong Bujue asked. Vincent, Vincent replied calmly. Oh. Feng Bujue's expression changed slightly, and he immediately looked the man up and down. Huh, I've heard a lot about you. The two words of "I've heard a lot about you" didn't contain any sarcasm or hypocrisy. Brother Jew really had heard a lot about this man. Ha! Woody said a lot of bad things about me to you, didn't he? Vincent rested his right elbow on the armrest of the throne and rested his chin on one hand. He looked at Brother Jew with a confident posture. If you're really Vincent, then there's no need to ask this question. Feng Bujue tapped his temple with his hand. Why don't you go inside and find the answer yourself? My dear friend, Vincent revealed a charming smile. You have to know that most of the time, the answer isn't the most important thing. He paused for half a second and continued. Whether it's the limit of mortal wisdom or a deified sage, they all stop at the level of the answer. But what's the point? The former, when asked what 1 plus 1 equals, instantly got the answer too. The latter, before someone asked what 1 plus 1 equals, already knew the question and knew that the final answer was 2. At this point, he stared at Feng Bujue for a moment. Ha! But why we have to be so stupid? You are indeed stupid. As Feng Bujue spoke, he grabbed the chair and turned it around so that he was sitting face to face with Vincent. You said a bunch of specious nonsense. Not only did you not give me an answer, but you also denied my question. Ha ha! Vincent shook his head slightly and laughed heartily. Your reaction is very smart, Feng Bujue. The first thing you said to me was a test. When I called you by your real name, the test had a result. You entered another state. I'll call it Feng Bujue's serious state. In this state, the speed of your thinking, the way you think, and so on have significantly improved. You've reached a superdimensional perspective. He pursed his lips, and the way he looked at Brother Bujue became more complicated. Using your own perspective to observe yourself, and at the same time, using the perspective of a bystander to observe yourself, and at the same time, using a personality as vast as the universe to observe this bystander. In this way, you can solve all the problems in time, space, subjective consciousness, and objective reality. As he spoke, Feng Bujue's expression changed. There was a rare, genuine seriousness on his face. There are only a handful of people in the human world who can reach this state. Vincent smiled. You are indeed the one chosen by Woody. Ha! It seems that his deal with that person was not a loss. His deal with who? What deal? What does it have to do with me? Feng Bujue asked 3 questions in a row. Don't worry. Vincent raised his left hand and waved his fingers. Some things, when the time comes, you will naturally find out, I promise. Can you answer my question with something other than nonsense? Feng Bujue asked coldly. Yes. Vincent replied with 2 simple words and then went silent. Hey. Brother Bujue was also silent for 2 seconds, and then he complained, Don't tell me that this yes counts as a not-nonsense answer. That's right. Vincent smiled. This not wrong counts as well. Bang! The next second, the gun went off. Why do you have to do this? Vincent lowered his head to look at the bullet hole in his chest. Even though the bullet had drilled in, there was no blood at all. I thought you and I have a similar sense of humor. Yes, I am using this sense of humor, Feng Bujue said as he raised the assault rifle and aimed at Vincent's crotch. Okay, let's talk nicely. Vincent turned his body and crossed his legs. Let's not do these unnecessary things. Then I will not beat around the bush with you. Feng Bujue knew that the demon before him was at the same level of intelligence as Woody. The conversation between smart people could be profound or direct. Be more self-conscious and tell me everything you can. Don't be like this. At this moment, Vincent's tone suddenly changed. It was not that he was deliberately trying to be cute, but he did mean it. You're now on SCP-738. The Devil's Deal, as the name suggests, we're going to make a deal. He leaned against the back of the throne and spread his hands. If you don't pay the corresponding price, you won't get anything substantial in return. Regarding this, there is nothing I can do. Is that so? Feng Bujue said. Then, are we going to put on a show of the devil luring the mortal into the trap? If you don't mind, I will start now. Vincent tilted his head slightly and looked at Brother Jew with a very sincere gaze. Okay, you do it. Feng Bujue replied weakly. Ah, fame, power, wealth, everything in this world is with me. Vincent recited passionately, as if he was reciting a poem. Mortal, what do you want? Say it. Is this how you lure others into making deals? Feng Bujue narrowed his eyes and responded to Vincent with a look of disdain. I can't help but ask, how did you become Satan's confidant? Huh? Vincent laughed. Okay, I will be serious. He cleared his throat. How about I give you Li Ruoyu? What did you say? When Feng Bujue heard those 3 words, his expression changed immediately. It became cold and intimidating. Look, Vincent replied smugly. Someone is angry. Why is that? Because I have touched the most vulnerable part of his incomparably powerful heart. As he spoke, an invisible shadow appeared to cover his face. This is what it means to be immortal. Feng Bujue, you have to experience your own weakness. It is because of this that the human soul is so beautiful and radiant. On the other hand, those of us who have been deified are nothing more than a bunch of ugly scoundrels, dogs, opportunists, and saboteurs. I hate myself, Feng Bujue, but at the same time, I don't care. Can you understand this contradiction? Forgive me for not being able to, Feng Bujue replied coldly. Yes. Vincent continued sadly. I know you can't, but I just hope you can think about it. So what if I think about it? Will it be closer to your so-called deification? Feng Bujue asked. Who knows? Vincent avoided this sharp question. Let's get back to the topic. You have seen it. I know how to tempt you or threaten you. In this regard, I am no different from Woody. His tone changed slightly. But don't misunderstand. You are not acting according to our will. I am not saying this for your self-esteem. This is the truth, and you know it yourself. As he spoke, he shook his finger. Following his movement, a piece of parchment, a quill, and a bottle of ink flew out from the drawer next to the throne. I will ask again. How about I give you Ruoyu? What do you mean by give? Feng Bujue did not give an answer, but asked further. Since it was about the substance of the deal, Vincent had to tell the truth. As long as you agree, she is yours from her soul to her body, everything about her. You mean to control her thoughts? Feng Bujue asked. Of course not, Vincent said. With the strength of her soul, I can't control or change her consciousness. Then what are you going to do? Brother Jew asked again. It is very simple, Vincent said. I just need to undo her seal. Hearing this, Feng Bujue's expression changed. You can undo the seal placed by Woody. Who told you that the seal was placed by Woody? Vincent asked. At this moment, countless scenes flashed through Feng Bujue's mind. So it was you? Yes, Vincent said. It was me. He paused for a second and continued. Li Ruoyu is also in this gamble, and I am the one who placed the bet on her. He held the quill in his hand and dipped it in the ink. He said to the parchment floating in the air, I can tell you clearly that once I undo the seal, she will realize that she has fallen in love with you. What do you think? This way, you won't be threatened by Woody anymore. Do you want to make a deal? What are the terms? Feng Bujue asked immediately. It's very simple, Vincent said. Many years later, when your life ends, boom, a loud explosion interrupted Vincent's words. The door that was closed by Feng Bujue was destroyed by the explosion from outside. In the smoke and dust, a group of people filed in. One of them yelled at Feng Bujue, whose ears were still ringing, "Don't move." Frequent footsteps and the sound of guns being loaded quickly surrounded Feng Bujue. Sigh, what a pity. Vincent sighed. Perhaps this is the will of God. Wait, Feng Bujue said. Even if we can't make a deal now, in reality, that's impossible. Vincent knew what he was going to say, so he directly denied it. Under other circumstances, I have no right to offer a deal of this level. Only when you're sitting on SCP. 738 is an exception, and this is the only chance. The next time you sit on this chair, the demon that appears may not be me. Feng Bujue also snorted. Fine, perhaps this is the will of God. Don't speak. Throw your weapons to the ground. Stand up and raise your hands. The fully armed security guards were yelling at Brother Bujue. They could not see or hear Vincent, but they could hear a distorted voice echoing around the throne. "I'm sorry. Let's meet again if fate allows it," Vincent said as he disappeared from the throne. The parchment, quill, and ink that were floating in the air also flew back into the long drawer at lightning speed. "Hurry up and do it, or we'll shoot." The security guards gave an ultimatum. Feng Bujue had no choice but to put down the gun in his hand, raise his hands, and stand up. He knew the people from the SCP Foundation were not police officers. This group of people did not mind executing their targets. They would not even blink when they killed their own people, much less a D-grade personnel. 3 seconds later, a few brawny men swarmed forward, subdued Feng Bujue to the ground, and handcuffed his hands again. The security guard who yelled earlier picked up the communicator and reported, "Sir, the target is under control, requesting further instructions." Chapter 900. After receiving the order from the command central, the security team prepared to detain Feng Bujue. For Brother Ju, this was not a good development, but being arrested was better than being shot dead on the spot. After all, there was no time limit for this scenario. As long as he was still alive, there was a chance for him to turn the tables. With that in mind, he accepted the fact that he was going to be arrested. On the way to the 9th floor, that was the sentence Brother Ju heard the most. "Move faster, don't play any tricks." Of course, even if they did not say that, Brother Ju would not play any tricks. Right now, he only had the physical fitness of an ordinary person, and the people escorting him were a group of SCP Foundation security personnel armed with live ammunition and at the level of special forces. With such a disparity in power, intelligence alone was not going to change the situation. Furthermore, Feng Bujue knew very well that in this world filled with SCP projects, there were many incredible resources that could be used. With his understanding of SCP, as long as he stayed in this scenario for a while, he would be able to reap great benefits. With that in mind, he did not want to take any unnecessary risks. Maintain the formation and pay attention to the corner of the stairs. After entering the stairwell, the 8 members of the security team split up to surround Feng Bujue and continued to move forward. 1st floor, 2nd floor, 3rd floor. The stairwell was labeled from B1, B2, B3, until it reached B5. Just as they were moving from the 5th floor to the 6th floor, suddenly, accompanied by a series of strange noises, black, vine-like substances blossomed from the ground below the stairs, corroding large chunks of the ground and walls. What the F***CK? Feng Bujue reacted faster than the other members of the security team. He recognized what it was with one glance. "Run!" His shout had awakened the 8 members who were staring blankly at the wall, but they did not realize what the black corrosion marks meant. After all, they were just the security personnel of this facility, not the Special Mobile Task Force, MTF. Due to their clearance, they did not have access to all the information related to the SCP projects in the base, especially the Kita-level projects. "Shut up. Don't move." The team member who was leading the team warned Brother Ju sternly. Then he told his team members, "Don't panic, prepare to fight." "Fight your head," Feng Bujue roared. "If you want to die, then die on your own. I'm not going to die with you. I told you to shut up. You didn't listen." The guard turned around and yelled at Brother Ju, but at this moment, a black figure suddenly floated from the ground behind him and grabbed him by the throat. In the next second, the 3 security guards standing in the front row almost instinctively raised their guns and opened fire in unison. 2-2-2-2. The 3 of them were well-trained and had good marksmanship. They were very close to the target, so if they fired accurately, they would not hurt their comrades. However, the Black Shadow's movement was not affected at all. "It's useless. Run." Feng Bujue yelled again in a serious tone. But the guards ignored him and continued to fire. TSK, a bunch of idiots. Brother Ju was in a hurry, but he was surrounded in the middle of the team and was handcuffed. If he made any sudden movements, he would be shot dead. He could only continue to wait for the security team to realize the severity of the situation. Project Code, SCP, 106 Project Grade. Keter Special Containment Measures. The containment area for SCP-106 is divided into two levels. The first level is a locked room made of lead-lined steel. The room must be sealed in 40 layers of identical materials. There must be a gap of at least 36 centimeters between each layer of materials. The support frames between the layers must be arranged randomly. The room must be suspended at least 60 centimeters above any surface using ELYID electromagnetic support. The second level of containment area is made up of 16 spherical rooms. Each room is filled with a different liquid and filled with random support frames and support surfaces. The second level of containment area should be equipped with a lighting system so that the containment area can be fully lit at no less than 80,000 lumens without the intervention of personnel. Both levels of containment area should be monitored 24 hours a day. If you observe any corrosion on the surface of the containment area, on the staff, or anywhere within 200 meters of the room where 106 is located, report to the security department immediately. Any person or item lost because of 106 will be considered as missing or dead, and no rescue attempts would be made. No physical contact with 106 is allowed at any time. All physical contact requires the approval of 2/3 of the O5 level personnel. All contact must be made in the AR2's largest security station, and only after the evacuation of non-essential personnel. All personnel, including researchers, security personnel, and D-class personnel, must be at least 60 meters away from the containment area at all times, unless the containment area has failed. Description: SCP-106 has the appearance of an old human man. The surface of his body is usually in a state of high decay. His appearance often changes, and the degree of decay has been observed in various forms. SCP-106 is not very sensitive. Sometimes, it will remain motionless throughout the day, waiting for its prey. SCP-106 can peel off any vertical surface and can hang upside down in an indeterminate manner. SCP-106 will try to weaken its prey. This is usually achieved by attacking the main organs, muscle tissue, or legs. Then, it will drag the injured prey into its pocket dimension. SCP-106 seemed to prefer humans between the ages of 10 to 25 years as its prey. SCP-106 can cause a corrosive effect on solid objects it comes in contact with. After a few seconds of contact, it will cause the material to physically collapse. The material will go through a process of rust, decay, and finally collapse. SCP-106 will create a black, mucus-like substance on the material, similar to the material that wraps around its body. This effect is particularly harmful to life forms and is considered a predigestive behavior. The corrosive effect will last for 6 hours after contact, after which it will burn out. SCP-106 can pass through solid objects, leaving behind a corrosive mucus wherever it goes. SCP-106 can disappear into solid objects and enter a space that is assumed to be a pocket dimension. Then, SCP-106 can leave through any solid object that is connected to the solid object it enters. For example, it can enter the inner wall of a room and exit the outer wall, or enter a wall and leave through the ceiling. As for the pocket dimension, it is currently not possible to analyze whether this is the key to SCP-106 prototype, or if it is just a nest created by SCP-106. Limited observation of the pocket dimension shows that it is made up of rooms and halls, and has an entrance. This activity can last for several days, and some projects will be released. Obviously, these are all for the purpose of hunting, recycling, or redacted. SCP-106, the Old Man, a terrifying old man. One of the deadliest and most difficult Keter-class projects to deal with. Physical restraints were impossible and direct physical damage. At least for now, it did not seem to have any effect on him. Due to his extremely difficult nature to contain, the Foundation had to reevaluate him every 3 months or after the containment failed. Although the Foundation had been looking for more effective proactive and forward-looking containment measures to contain SCP-106, this problem had not been solved yet. Therefore, the only thing they could do was to maintain continuous surveillance and establish a rapid response mechanism. Unfortunately, what was happening at this moment seemed to have proven that this method was not very effective. Finally, after about 30 seconds, the leader of the security team, who was responsible for giving orders, let out two final groans and stopped moving. A black, decaying substance spread out from his throat, destroying most of the tissues on his upper body. The weapon in his hand had already fallen to the ground, and his limbs hung limply. At this moment, the other security personnel had basically stopped shooting. They finally noticed that the old black monster was not afraid of bullets at all. What the F***CK are you still standing there for? Why are you still not leaving? Feng Bujue roared again and turned around to run upstairs. As he shouted, SCP-106 had already slowly dragged the corroded man to the ground. The rest of the security personnel saw this and hesitated for a few seconds until one of them said, Go up. Only then did they move. Feng Bujue breathed a sigh of relief when these guys finally decided to run away. He knew that as long as he kept running and paid attention to the dark matter in all directions, there was a high chance that he would be able to avoid SCP-106. Hey, Dan, take off his handcuffs. After running for a short distance, the security personnel who commanded the retreat earlier spoke to the person beside Brother Jew. Hearing this, Dan hesitated for a few seconds. Are you sure, Gore? Now is not the time to nag, the man called Gore replied. The captain is done for. I have the final say here. At this point, Dan had no room to refute. He immediately took out the handcuff key and unlocked Brother Jew's handcuffs as he ran. Oh! Feng Bujue's lips curled up slightly. Looks like there are still one or two people who understand. Cut the crap, Gore replied. I just don't want to see anyone killed by that monster. He paused for half a second. Hurry up and tell me everything you know. Sure. Brother Jew first gave Gore a hollow, glutinous rice ball, then changed the topic. But before that, I wonder if you have access to B3? Gore was slightly taken aback. What are you going to do? Do you even need to ask? Feng Bujue said. Of course, I'm going to go in. He lied without batting an eyelid. If we want to deal with that monster, we have to use something from B3. While they were talking, they had just arrived at the door of B3. Everyone, follow me. Gore weighed the pros and cons for less than 2 seconds and made up his mind. He took out a pass from his pocket and opened the electronic door of B3. Then, the 8 of them filed into the corridor of B3. The lighting here was different from other places. Even though the emergency power was switched, the light on this floor was still white, as if it was not affected by the outside world. Looks like there's an independent power generator on this floor, Feng Bujue muttered as soon as they entered the corridor. Okay, we have arrived at B3. At this time, the team member named Dan, next to Brother Jew, turned to him and said, Now can you tell us what the monster is? Let's walk and talk. Feng Bujue said that thing can go through walls. If we stay where we are, it will probably catch up to us. There was no doubt about the credibility of this statement. The security team also saw how their captain died. They did not want to be suddenly dragged into the wall or the ceiling. Okay, you walk in the middle, Gur said. He then turned to look at Dan and said, Dan, report the current situation to Officer Cosmo. After the deputy captain gave the 2 orders, he walked to the front of the team and led them forward. So, Feng Bujue jogged with them as he began to narrate. You may have heard the code name of this thing. It is SCP-106. In the next 5 minutes, Brother Jew explained the files of SCP-106 to these people in detail. At the same time, he did not forget to observe the environment on both sides of the corridor. He did not miss a single one of the signs that were marked at the crossings in the corridor. You kid, you're not making this up, are you? After listening to a long description, Gore suddenly turned to Brother Jew and said, Since they are constantly monitoring, why haven't I seen any surveillance footage of this project in the monitoring room? Faced with this level of doubt, Feng Bujue did not panic and answered smoothly. Why are you asking me this question? I'm just a D-grade personnel. You know better than me how your organization works. Gore thought about it and suddenly felt that Lu Zhou was right. For a Keto-level project like this, there must be a special monitoring team responsible for observing. They did not need to worry about it. Okay, I'll assume that what you said is true. Gore said again. Do you know how to deal with SCP-106? Run. Feng Bujue replied in a matter-of-fact tone. What? Gore was obviously angry. What do you mean? I mean there's no way. Feng Bujue shrugged and smiled. At this stage, there is no feasible way to destroy this project, and his weaknesses are very limited. Probably only 4 points will be disturbed when faced with complex and randomly arranged building structures. Will hide in pocket space when faced with sudden strong light, hates lead, and will be confused by liquids. And these 4 points won't cause any substantial physical harm to him. They're just containment measures. Before Brother Ju finished speaking, Gore rushed back and grabbed him by the collar. Then why did you say that B3 has something to deal with him? Although Gore was wearing a helmet, Feng Bujue had no doubt that at this time, Gore had an extremely ferocious and angry face. Calm down, buddy. Brother Ju smiled and replied calmly. Actually, what I really mean is, there's something here that can help us escape. UB***. Gore pushed him to the ground and pressed the muzzle of the assault rifle against Brother Ju's forehead. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? He said fiercely. According to what you said, SCP-106's movements are not agile. If we want to run, can't we just go anywhere? Oomph. How stupid. Feng Bujue snorted coldly. In the face of this situation, his attitude became more arrogant. Don't you understand? This base is finished. He knew that in order to convince others, he first had to be full of confidence. Even if it was nonsense, he had to make it sound as real as possible. Do you think this is the only Keto-level project that escaped? As soon as these words came out, the hearts of all the security team members trembled. You bunch of cannon fodder, you really don't know your place. Feng Bujue began to brainwash them again. You also heard the description of SCP-100 document. In the case of a Keter-level project going out of control, even if an agent is arrested, they won't rescue anyone. And you? What are you? Compared to D-grade personnel like us, you're just a group of higher-level sacrifices. Compared to the commander who is hiding in the distance and controlling you, I am the one who is in the same boat as you. Am I not? At least I am in the same situation as you. If we die, we die together. He unconsciously pulled this group of people who came to arrest him to his side. However, these security team members of the Foundation were also strictly selected. How could they betray him so easily? Oomph. You really dare to say that? Gore snorted coldly. The gun in his hand was still pressed against Brother Ju's forehead, but his tone was slightly calmer. The next second, he turned to Dan and asked, Dan, how is the communication with the command center going? I can't reach them. Dan shook his head. I've been calling them since I entered this floor, but there's been no response. Hearing this, Feng Bujue was overjoyed. He put on an expression that said, I knew this would happen. I don't think I need to explain any further. You're just a bunch of abandoned pawns, a bunch of consumables that can be replaced at any time. He spread his hands. Instead of serving the commander who abandoned you, why don't you think about how to save your lives? When a security team heard this, they looked at each other and fell silent. Feng Bujue knew that they had taken a bait. If you don't mind, I'll continue the previous topic of why did we come to B3. He paused. Actually, B1, B2, B3, or some other emergency shelter, it makes no difference where we escape to. As long as we stay in this base, sooner or later, we will die. If we want to survive, the only way is to use space jump to go somewhere else. Chapter 901. You mean to say there's a project in B3 that can allow us to teleport? Gore asked. That's right. Feng Bujue replied. If you still want to live, I suggest you come with me to find that thing and then leave this base. Humph. What a joke. Gore laughed coldly. You want us to disobey orders and help you, a D-grade personnel, escape with just a few words. It's just a runaway 106. We're not scared out of our wits. Dan added, Even if we can't contact the command center, it doesn't mean anything. After these two expressed their stance, the other 5 members also expressed their agreement. It looked like Brother Jew's plan did not work. If that's the case, then I have nothing else to say. Feng Bujue did not panic. He stood up and patted the dust off his body. Do whatever you want. Even if you don't tell me, I will, Gore replied. Then he turned around and said, Everyone, pay attention. We're heading toward the cargo corridor. Cargo corridor? Feng Bujue was confused. There's such a thing? Huh, what did you think? Gore looked at Brother Jew and laughed. You said B3 would come to B3 just because you said so? Of course. I came in after making sure there was a way out. TSK. Feng Bujue mumbled to himself. This is nightmare difficulty after all. These NPCs are not easy to deal with. Brother Jew's initial plan was, no matter what, he had to trick these people into following him into the anomalous project's containment facility. Then, he only needed to act according to the situation and come up with some random excuse to overturn the theory of spatial transference. But he did not expect these people to be able to stick to their bottom line and not fall for his trick. Kid, I'm warning you. After the team resumed their journey, Gore turned to Brother Jew and said, The order we received did not say that we have to bring anyone back alive. If you try to play any more tricks, are you going to turn me into a corpse and carry me back? Feng Bujue continued. All right, I understand. He was still pretending to be calm. Since you are so stubborn, I have no other choice. I can only wish you good luck. Although he said, good luck, Brother Jew was actually praying that they would encounter something similar to 106 soon. Only that kind of real, fatal threat could change the current situation. Clang, clang. Clang, clang, clang. Fortunately or unfortunately, Brother Jew's wish came true very quickly. Just as the group was rushing towards the freight channel, the ringing of a bell entered their ears. This was not the crisp sound of a small bell. Instead, it was a deeper and thicker sound. What's going on? Gore, who was walking at the front, froze. He muttered to himself, his tone showing unprecedented panic and fear. Hey, did you guys see that? Another team member, not far from him, immediately spoke up. Of course we saw it. Another person stammered, What the hell is that? It should be SCP-513-1. At this time, Feng Bujue also chimed in. Only Brother Jew's tone was normal, unlike the others, who more or less showed a certain degree of fear. What the hell is that? Dan asked loudly. Didn't you all see it? Feng Bujue replied calmly. That's what it is. Project number, SCP-513. Project grade. Euclid Special Containment Measures. SCP-513 should be suspended in 1 cubic meter gelatin. The whole body should be placed in a soundproof containment room with environmental control devices. The gelatin must be inspected daily for damage or loss of quality. After any earthquake, explosion, or ultrasonic event above level 2, this gelatin should undergo an emergency inspection. The personnel carrying out this inspection should always wear earplugs and anti-cold earmuffs in the containment room of SCP-513. If there is any damage to the gelatin, such as tearing, shredding, melting, mold, etc., SCP-513 should immediately be removed and placed in a new replacement gelatin block by a team of D-Class personnel who were surgically deafened. During this process, no other personnel are allowed to enter this containment room. Any perceptive creatures exposed to SCP-513 should be monitored by at least 2 security personnel at all times. Under no circumstances should these victims be sedated or put into an unconscious state. Any victims who enter an unconscious state should be executed immediately. D-Class personnel should be executed when the initial psychological damage occurs. Other exposed victims can be executed if they request it. If possible, the moment SCP-513-1 enters your field of vision, it should be captured. Description: physically, SCP-513 is a heavily rusted cowbell with nothing special about it. Because of the severe rust on its surface, no markings or engravings were found. Attempts to remove the rust on its surface using chemical or physical methods have all failed. SCP-513 was discovered by a redacted agent when he was re-establishing site, redacted as a containment measure for Mu. The tongue of SCP-513 was firmly secured with several strips of tape. A piece of paper was also discovered with SCP-513, see Appendix. Any sound made by SCP-513 will immediately cause all perceptive creatures who hear it to panic. This effect has nothing to do with these creatures' previous psychological state. Victims exposed to this effect report that they're being stared at by an invisible entity and show an increase in heart rate and blood pressure. After an hour of exposure to SCP-513, victims will catch a glimpse of SCP-513-1 when they open a door, walk past a mirror, turn their head, or do anything that will cause their vision to suddenly change. Victims all say that as soon as SCP-513-1 is seen, it will immediately turn around and run away, leaving no trace behind before disappearing. Questioning of the surrounding personnel shows that those who are not exposed to SCP-513 are unable to see SCP-513-1. The glimpse of SCP-513-1 will occur repeatedly after 14 to 237 minutes. SCP-513-1's stealth behavior will cause severe sleep loss for victims, because the sleeper will be constantly disturbed by SCP-513-1 during their sleep. Victims who are able to sleep before SCP-513-1 appears report that they will be physically attacked by SCP-513-1. When a victim wakes up, SCP-513-1 will escape as usual. This sleep loss, as well as the psychological stress induced by SCP-513-1's behavior, usually leads to delusions, hostility, overvigilance, and depression. In all the tests, except for one victim, all ended with the victim committing suicide. The description of SCP-513-1's appearance is very unreliable. Victims are unable to give a complete visual description due to exhaustion, damaged psychological state, and chaotic overvigilance. However, all the interrogations so far indicate that SCP-513-1 is a thin humanoid creature with a pair of abnormally large hands. Appendix: the text on the shredded paper. You have seen it. Now it can hear you. You have touched it. Now it can see you. Don't shake it. If you hear it, it can touch you. A cowbell was the name of this SCP-513-1. This was a very scary project. Although it couldn't be said that it had any malice towards mankind, the effect it induced was enough to make a horror film series. Just now, Fong Bujiwe and the 7 security team members around him heard the cowbell made by SCP-513-1. As a result, the 8 of them were inevitably affected by the project. However, for Fong Bujiwe, who had lost his fear, panic did not exist. Although he also saw SCP-513-1, he didn't feel afraid at all. Don't worry, that thing won't appear again for a while. Brother Ju said to the security team members in a very relaxed tone. Let's continue. You're lying. At this moment, Dan's voice was trembling. Why do I feel like he's staring at me? Yeah, I feel the same way. Me too. The other security team members also responded one after another. So what if he's staring? Fong Bujiwe said, everyone who hears the cowbell will be stared at by him. I can also feel his gaze, but that's not a big deal. He was definitely speaking without thinking. SCP-513-1 can't cause us any physical harm. To put it bluntly, he's something that exists in the conscious world. As long as we stay awake, then the only thing he can do is to keep flashing in our line of sight to scare us. You kid. At this time, Gore was the first to calm down. How do you know all this? Previously, when he heard Brother Ju talk about the case of 106, he felt that something was wrong. This time, he felt that the situation was even more strange. You keep saying that you're a D-level personnel, but you seem to know the information of the Foundation's projects like the back of your hand. No matter what abnormality appears in front of you, you can immediately identify which project it is. He raised the muzzle. Tell me, who are you? Oh, Fong Bujiwe made an unfathomable expression again. Since you don't trust me at all, why ask so many times? Even if I answer this question, you might not believe me, right? Oomph. Gore snorted and didn't ask any more questions because Brother Jew was right. By the way, 2 seconds later, Fong Bujue spoke again. Compared to my identity, don't you think there's another thing worth thinking about? Oh, what is it? Gore asked. Don't you think it's strange? Brother Jew's expression darkened. Who rang SCP-513? As soon as this was said, the 7 security personnel were collectively stunned, and the timing of the bell was perfect. Fong Bujue said as he turned his head and looked at a fork in the road beside him. The sign at the fork in the road had the words SCP-513 Containment Room. There's no doubt the soundproofing of this containment room has been damaged or turned off, and the cowbell happened to ring when we passed by here. Ha! It feels like a premeditated attack. Ignore him. Gore ignored Brother Jew's sarcastic words and ordered stubbornly, no matter what happened in that containment room, it has nothing to do with our mission. Keep moving. At the same time, in the command center, still can't get the image? Officer Cosmo asked the staff next to him again. No, the staff member replied. How's the communication going? The other party keeps sending communication requests, but every time we pick up, we can only hear a series of noisy sound waves. After hearing this, Cosmo fell into deep thought. It turned out that ever since Brother Jew and the 7 security personnel escaped into B3, all the video and audio signals on the 3rd basement floor were cut off from the results of the computer analysis. The wiring was normal and did not look like a mechanical failure. It cannot be a problem with the power supply either. The 3rd basement floor and the command center both had dedicated power generators. Even if 106 had destroyed the power supply room, it would not have affected these 2 places. Officer. A moment later, Agent Steven, who was standing not far away, saw the troubled look on Cosmo's face. He stepped forward and reminded him, could it be a project that caused the monitoring equipment to not work properly? Cosmo turned to look at him. Before you said anything, I was already thinking which project had this characteristic. As the person in charge of this base, Cosmo could basically recite the names, code names, and corresponding characteristics of all the projects in the facility. Oh, do you have a clue? Officer, Steven asked. Yes, Cosmo replied calmly. As far as I know, there is no SCP in B3 that can do this. Steven did not seem to understand what the officer meant. After a 2-second pause, Cosmo said, then there's only one possibility left. He paused. It's the anomalous project that has yet to be established. When Steven heard this, his expression changed. Officer, that project is, take a look for yourself. As Cosmo spoke, he picked up a document from the console in front of him and handed it to Steven. Steven took the document and looked at it closely. Project to be evaluated. Anomalous. 01. Project level? Special containment measures. Anomalous. 01 should be stored in a cuboid alloy container of 5 cubic meters. The container is made of redacted as the main material. The container should be placed in a standard containment unit of 5 by 5 meters. The room must be under constant surveillance. Before the end of the evaluation, other than the testers, no one below level 5 is allowed to communicate or come into contact with Anomalous 01. All personnel who interact with this project must undergo a psychological evaluation immediately after leaving the containment measures. If there are any abnormalities, it is recommended that they be executed on the spot. Description: Anomalous 01 is a humanoid puppet about 1 meter tall that calls itself Billy. Its body size is close to that of a human child. It is wearing a black suit with a white shirt and a red bow tie. It is wearing a pair of red shoes and white gloves. Anomalous 01's head is obviously larger than its body. Black hair grows from the back of its head. Its face is like a white mask. Its protruding cheekbones have a red spiral pattern. Its eye sockets are black. It has a red iris and black pupils. Anomalous 01's mouth is painted with red lipstick. It has a chin that can move up and down, and it is constantly smiling. Anomalous 01 has a hoarse voice that is like a voice changer. Anomalous. 01 is not a still object. It is very clear that it is a living object. The results of the X-ray examination showed that anomalous 01 structure is no different from a normal puppet. However, its clothes, hair, shoes, and other items cannot be separated. It has been proven that conventional weapons have no effect on anomalous 01. The application to use chemical weapons has not been approved. On the 148th day after SCP-079 went missing, anomalous 01 suddenly appeared in the containment facility of SCP-079. The surveillance showed that it appeared from a space-time rift. The MTF team near the facility was immediately dispatched to capture it. During the capture process, anomalous 01 put up a very strong resistance. It used a powerful ability that is suspected to be psychokinesis to cause redacted on the relevant facility. After being captured, anomalous 01 tried to escape many times. It also showed that it has a good understanding of other SCP projects. In a total of redacted attempts to escape, anomalous 01 caused a considerable amount of damage. In the communication with Dr. Redacted and many researchers, anomalous 01 has shown a very high IQ and EQ. He was usually able to dominate the conversation with his polite manner and profound psychological knowledge. Many recordings show that his favorite sentence is, "I want to play a game with you." The evaluation of anomalous 01 will undoubtedly take a long time. This information is still in the process of being completed. Considering the unique nature of the project, it is recommended that a disguise file be established first. After reading the document, Stephen broke out in a cold sweat. "Sir," he looked at Cosmo. "Do you mean this project might have already escaped?" "What do you mean by might?" Cosmo replied. "I'm sure that Billy has already escaped." He paused. "I participated in the capture operation a few months ago. Even now, the memory is still fresh in my mind. The danger level of that puppet is no less than any Keter-level project. It's just that it doesn't have that obvious hostility toward humans." He mumbled, "Personally, I feel like Billy is more like a highly intelligent life form that came here from another dimension with a purpose." Chapter 902. Something's not right. After walking for another 7 or 8 minutes, Gore, who was leading the team, waved his hand to signal his teammates to stop. "We seem to have seen this fork once before. In fact, this is the 3rd time we've come to this place," Fong Bujua said after hearing Gore's words. "What did you say?" A security team member next to him shouted at him. "Then why didn't you say anything just now?" "Heh," Fong Bujua sneered. "You don't trust me anyway, so I might as well wait for you to discover the problem before I say anything." The****. The team member immediately became angry and reached out to grab Brother Jew's collar. "That's enough." Gore stopped him. "Calm down. After all, he was the vice captain. Relatively speaking, he was calmer than the other team members. I know everyone is very irritated, but now is not the time to quarrel with that kid." Along the way, Gore had also realized that they needed this D-class personnel named Rudy Austin. Otherwise, they would likely not be able to return to the emergency shelter alive. "Hey you," Gore immediately said to Fong Bujua. "What do you think of the phenomenon in front of us?" "What?" Fong Bujua put on a fearless expression. "Do you think I'm Wikipedia?" He shrugged. "Even if it's me, I can't be omniscient." He paused and changed the topic. But the moment he said this, all the security team members turned to look at Brother Jew. "I can probably guess." Fong Bujue continued. "The phenomenon we are experiencing is caused by an anomalous project." "How do you know?" Gore asked. "Please note, I said can probably guess, not definitely know. Don't misunderstand me." Fong Bujue immediately corrected him. "As for the basis of my inference, it's very simple." He tilted his head and replied in a very relaxed tone. "From the moment we entered B3 until now, there are a total of 18 forks on both sides of the corridor. The signs next to the forks have indicated what is being held in the containment facility. According to my observation, There are 17 SCP projects that have been numbered, so there's only one possibility left. After Gore heard this, he was silent for a few seconds. So, not only did you memorize the signs of all the forks, but you also know the details of each project? Yes, Fong Bujue answered bluntly, and asked in return, can I? Oomph. Gore snorted coldly. Although he still did not fully trust the man in front of him, he could vaguely feel that what the man said was true. It seems that you are a big shot beyond our imagination. You flatter me. I'm really just a D-level personnel. Fong Bujue's answer was a mixture of truth and falsehood, and it was hard to tell what he was thinking. If you think that I have some credibility to my words, why don't you listen to me? Go to the containment center where Anomalous is located and see if you can resolve this space loop anomaly. As he said this, he spread out his hands and pretended to be indifferent. Of course, you can also ignore me and continue to walk in circles in this corridor until you run out of energy. Or wait for 513-1 foot's peaking phenomenon to activate and cause all kinds of mental trauma. Enough! Gore interrupted Fong Bujue and immediately turned to Dan. Dan, have you contacted the command center? Dan just shook his head and did not say anything. It looked like he had given up. TSK. Gore cursed internally. Could it be that those B** stars have really abandoned us? After a moment of hesitation and consideration, Gore made the choice. Fine, we will go to the containment facility to investigate. He glanced at Brother Jew. Let's see if our knowledgeable D-level personnel can come up with a solution. At the same time, somewhere in B3, inside a standard containment room. They're here, aren't they? Billy, who was trapped inside a large metal box, suddenly opened his mouth and mumbled to himself, and they seemed to be heading straight for me. His voice was as hoarse and low as ever. Looks like, among this group of people, there's at least one person with great intelligence and one person who is familiar with all the SCP projects in B3. Only with these two conditions would they be able to deduce that it was me who caused the folded space incident and find me. As a very high existence in the main universe of Thriller Paradise, Billy's intelligence had reached a very high level, so his deduction was quite accurate. Very good. They've come at the right time, Billy said excitedly. After this short period of rest, the power that I've accumulated has reached the limit of my current state. This time, I have to make use of these people and successfully escape from this universe. On the other hand, Fong Bujue was calculating. I've finally succeeded. When Gore gave the order to head to the containment facility of the Anomalous Project, Brother Jew felt like a stone had been lifted from his heart. Thankfully, these people aren't completely stubborn. If they insist on going down this path, I really wouldn't have been able to do anything. With that in mind, he thought, but that Anomalous Project is indeed very suspicious. Obviously, his earlier deduction was not entirely a lie. No matter what, this kind of ghost going around in circles type of space cycle has indeed happened, using the method of elimination. That Anomalous Project is the biggest suspect. And the previous 513 incident, no matter how I look at it, was man-made. Could it be that this project is behind it as well? It had to be said that what was happening at that moment was very dramatic. Fong Bujue's plan was to find a way to get to the room where the Anomalous Project was located, and Billy's plan was to lure the humans who entered B3 close to him and then force them to help him escape. Without knowing each other's identity and purpose, the two attracted each other's attention. At the same time, they unknowingly formed a cooperation. Even with the lack of information, Brother Jew still tried his best to convince the security team to go to Billy, and Billy tried his best to stop Brother Jew from being taken away as much as he could. Even though the starting point was different, their actual actions were the same. With the effort of both parties, the plot was led in a direction that was more beneficial to them. Now, Fong Bujue and Billy, these two people who had crossed paths many times, were finally going to work together in this environment where their power was severely limited. Chapter 903. Vroom Vroom Vroom. Accompanied by the sound of mechanical movements, a heavy metal door slowly rose. Then, Fong Bujue and the 7 members of the security team entered the experimental site where the project known as Anomalous 01 was located. The overall layout of this experimental site was very similar to the one where SCP-173 was located. In addition to the containment project room, there were also many large and complex instruments placed here. Now, what should we do? After walking into the experimental site, Dan asked. When he asked this question, his face was directed at Vice Captain Gore, but his teammates around him knew that the person he really wanted to ask was the D-Class personnel. Oomph. Gore turned his head and snorted. He then looked at Brother Jew and said, Mr. Austin, don't keep us in suspense. Tell us. Oh, so you know my name? Fong Bujue responded. Of course we've read your information before we came to arrest you, Gore replied. Fine. Fong Bujue shrugged and gave a non-committal look. Since you mentioned the information, before we open the containment mechanism, why don't we look around this room to see if there is any information related to this anomalous project? Gore thought for 2 seconds and replied, Let's do as you say. Then he ordered 2 security team members to keep an eye on Brother Jew while the other 4 searched with him. While looking for information, they did not forget to contact the command center through the communication equipment in the laboratory. Unfortunately, there was still no response. 5 minutes later, okay, I've read the project document. It seems this project does indeed have spatial abilities. Gore led the team members back to Brother Jew and said in a deep voice, but I think it's best not to make contact with him. Oh, Fong Bujue responded weakly. I want to ask you why. He reached out his hand. Let me see the information. I'll figure out myself. Are you kidding me? Gore replied solemnly. The permission required for this document is... What does that have to do with me? Fong Bujue didn't even let him finish his sentence. I don't care what rank you are. He was someone who was under someone else's gun, yet he was extremely arrogant. Don't you think it's funny to talk about this with a D-Class personnel like me? He snorted coldly. Oomph. Theoretically speaking, from the moment I stepped into the Golden Foundation's website, I only had 1 month left to live. Authority? Huh. As soon as he said this, Gore looked at his brother Jew with a serious expression. Generally speaking, it was impossible for the D-Class personnel recruited by the Foundation to know that they would be executed a month later. However, Fong Bujue's words made it clear that he was well aware of this rule. TSK, you're just a felon. What's there to be proud of? Gore responded unhappily, but his hand handed over the document unhurriedly. After accepting the document, Fong Bujue used his speed of reading 10 lines at a glance and his fast memorization and comprehension ability to read through the whole document in no time. Then Brother Jew used his superb facial expression to explain what it meant to be a pain in the ass. What's wrong with you? Gore saw the change in Brother Jew's expression and couldn't help but ask. Fong Bujue handed the document back to Gore and replied, I'm going to talk to the project. What did you say? Gore raised his voice and seemed to be surprised by Brother Jew's proposal. Are you illiterate? Did you read the document seriously? Let me tell you, we won't protect you when you're talking to the project. Don't worry, I'll go in alone. I don't need your protection. Fong Bujue added, you don't have to worry about me running away. After all, there's only one entrance to the containment room, right? Then what if you're killed by the project? Gore asked. So what if I'm killed? Fong Bujue replied. Your superiors didn't say that you have to keep me alive. His gaze swept across the team members. My life or death doesn't make much of a difference to you. He raised his finger and pointed in the direction of the experimental field door. But if I don't come into contact with the project, the status quo of the space cycle won't change. Even if we go out, we'll just be walking the same corridor over and over again. Even if we don't encounter any other out-of-control SCPs during this period, we'll eventually be exhausted. He paused for half a second before continuing. At that time, the effect of 513 will be highlighted. Based on your tone, it sounds like you'll definitely be able to stop the space cycle after you come into contact with the project, Gore said. I didn't say that. Fong Bujue's answer was watertight. But if you don't even give me a chance to try, I won't be able to prove it. This time, Gore did not make the decision on his own. He waved his hand and called the other 6 members of the security team over. They whispered for a while. Okay, you can go in. When Gore returned to Brother Jew, he gave such an answer. Then I'll have to trouble you guys to help me open the door to the containment room. Fong Bujue said as he walked toward the door. Remember, don't play any tricks. Gore reminded Brother Jew as he walked away. That's the containment room. You have nowhere to run. I got it. Fong Bujue responded in an impatient tone. A minute later, the door to the containment room opened. Brother Jew did not hesitate and strode in. After he stepped into the containment room, he immediately heard the door close behind him, but what's going on? Gore turned around and yelled at the control panel. Who told you to close the door? No, Vice Captain. The team member standing by the control panel was busy fiddling with the equipment in front of him. We didn't do that. What? Gore turned around abruptly and glared at the containment room. However, the rapidly closing door had already covered Brother Jew's back. You can even control the door of the containment room. Fong Bujue naturally heard the conversation between the two people outside. He immediately understood that it was Billy who closed the door. Why didn't you just escape from inside? Huh? In the alloy container, Billy's low, hoarse laughter quickly came. So it's you. I didn't expect to meet an acquaintance here. Did you just realize it was me? Brother Jew asked. Billy replied, Yes, I just realized who you are. Looks like this explains why you didn't escape. Fong Bujue continued. You guessed right. Billy continued. In this world, my ability is greatly limited. He paused for a moment. Even though I can still control many things compared to what I can do in the main universe, it's a far cry. Speaking of controlling things, Fong Bujue said, You were the one who used SCP-513 to mess with us earlier, right? Yes, Billy replied. But I didn't know you were mixed in with the crowd at the time. Your long-range perception ability has become blurry, right? Fong Bujue probed without batting an eyelid. It's not blurry, it's almost gone. Billy did not mind at all. Take the group of security guards outside as an example. When they were within 100 meters of me, I couldn't even accurately sense the number of people. It's already like this, but you still managed to use SCP-513's effect to ambush us. Fong Bujue asked curiously. Because I've been in this base for a long time. No matter how weak my perception is, I'm very familiar with my surroundings, Billy explained. Earlier, when your group arrived at B3, I cut off all the video and audio signals on this floor and blocked all the exits. He paused for a second before continuing. My original plan was to use SCP-513's characteristic to make you all go crazy. Then, I could use the fear energy generated from your bodies to recover my own power, but I didn't expect. You didn't expect us to come to you on our own? Fong Bujue asked. Billy did not answer this question. He continued, The problem I'm facing is very serious. Fong Bujue. As he spoke, the alloy container opened on its own. Billy was sitting inside the container. It's not difficult to escape from this container. Escaping from this floor or this base is doable. The problem is, how do I escape from this universe? Huh, so that's how it is. Fong Bujue said. Due to the limitation, you are unable to return to the main universe of Thriller Paradise on your own. Yes, Billy admitted it easily. Even if I escape from the Golden Foundation's facility, as long as I am unable to escape from this universe, they will eventually capture me. As he spoke, he walked out from the container. Actually, I have escaped many times already. Some of them were successful, while others were unsuccessful. But there is one rule that has not changed, and that is every time the Golden Foundation captures me, they will upgrade the containment measures on me. Therefore, I stopped escaping. This is just in case they have really invented some kind of room that can permanently restrain me. Oh, Fong Bujue nodded. In any case, you don't have to worry anymore, because my main mission this time is to rescue you. Ha, that's good. Billy was overjoyed. With Brother Jew's help, he felt like the chance of him being able to escape was very high. Now, let's talk about what kind of setting fear energy is, Brother Jew said. And what kind of reward do you plan to give me? Chapter 904. Time ticked by. 30 minutes had passed since Fong Bujue entered Billy's containment system. During this period, the security team outside the door kept trying to communicate with the outside world. The only thing they could do was wait. However, after 30 minutes, this kind of waiting seemed to be unable to last any longer. Vice Captain, I think I saw something just now. A team member walked up to Gore and said in a trembling voice. Although he was wearing a full-face mask, one could guess from his tone that his face was full of fear. Don't panic. I saw it too. Gore replied. It's just a ghostly shadow, just an illusion. Just ignore it. But, the team member continued. I can still feel. He's hiding somewhere. He's staring at me. Yes, Vice Captain. At this time, the team member named Dan also came over. Ever since I heard 513's bell, I've been having this feeling. Me too. What should we do? Vice Captain. The rest of the security team also came over. The fear in their hearts had already reached a critical point. All they needed was an opportunity, and their cowardice and timidity would be fully displayed. That's enough. Do you think I'm not afraid? Gur suddenly shouted. As the saying goes, extreme fear breeds extreme anger. He shouted this to give himself and everyone else courage. I heard 513's bell, just like you all, and I feel the same way as you do. But fear can't solve any problems, so you'd better all buck up and face reality like a man. Well said. At this second, a familiar voice suddenly came from the broadcast speaker in the laboratory. Vice Captain Gore, you're the only fourth-level personnel in this team. Hearing this, Gore raised his head, glanced around, and said loudly, How did you get through? That's not important. Feng Buju knew very well what the other party wanted to ask, so he interrupted. I know that you must be very confused now. The questions that bother you are, why can I hear you talking? Why can I speak through the radio? Why can't you open the door of the containment room? And am I still in the containment room? He paused. I'm sorry, but I don't have the time and interest to answer these questions one by one. What I can tell you is that I left the base 20 minutes ago. At this moment, I'm here to remind everyone out of humanitarianism. The spatial circulation effect that trapped you has disappeared. You can now leave through the freight channel. At this point, Brother Ju changed the topic. Of course, even if you can make it to the emergency shelter, I'm afraid it's not going to end well. He always used a cheerful tone to announce bad news, and it was indeed annoying. As for the reason, naturally, it's because of SCP-513 from earlier. I'm sorry to tell you that those who are affected by this SCP basically end up committing suicide. He said it like it was none of his business. As time goes by, the frequency of 513's appearance will increase, and it will cause very serious mental damage to you. Even if you force yourself to sleep with sleeping pills or knock yourself out, it'll be useless. This is because when you lose consciousness, he'll appear in your dreams and launch a physical attack on you. This will cause you to wake up quickly. Over time, you will collapse due to this constant psychological pressure. Severe sleep loss will lead to paranoia, hostility, overvigilance, and depression. At that time, death will be a relief. Didn't you hear 513's bell like us? A security team member heard this and shouted back. How can you say it so casually? I'm sorry, but I can't tell you the details. Feng Bujua smiled. In any case, I'm different from you. Brother Ju was indeed not afraid. 1. As a player, he would not enter a state of sleep or unconsciousness in the scenario, so 513-1 would not be able to attack him in his dreams. 2. He did not feel fear. Even if 513-1-foot-s glimpse phenomenon appeared repeatedly, the interval usually ranged from 14 to 237 minutes. It would not cause him any psychological pressure. UB asterisk starred. When Gore heard this, he was getting impatient. No matter who you are, even if you can escape for now, you won't be able to escape. La 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 la, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. La 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 la. Feng Bujua was like a child who had lost his mind. He yelled at the top of his lungs through the speaker. Do whatever you want. After all, it has nothing to do with me anymore. After saying that, his voice stopped abruptly. Then, silence descended upon the lab. 1 minute later, Dan spoke. Vice Captain, if what he said is true, Then this kid is very cunning. We cannot trust him. Even though Gore was angry, he had not lost his rationality. Based on my analysis, there are two purposes for him to tell us that. He paused. First, it is to create panic. Even if 513's effect is as he said, we might not die. He described it so vividly. He just wants to scare us and create pressure on us. He thought about it and continued. And his second purpose is to send us away. From how I see it, he is probably still hiding inside the anomalous project's containment room. The broadcast earlier was made by him using the power of the project. He scoffed. Humph. If he really left this base 20 minutes ago, he wouldn't have bothered with us. What kind of humanitarian spirit is this? Does he think we're 3 years old? At the same time, in Corridor B3, Fong Bujue carried Billy on his shoulder and walked at a leisurely pace. At that moment, using Billy's power, he heard everything that Gore said word for word. As I expected, the NPC in this scenario is quite intelligent. Brother Ju said, a level 4 security guard under the premise of 513 can come up with this kind of analysis. Even so, Billy continued. Doesn't that still not fall out of your calculation? He turned around to look at Brother Ju. The analysis that he came up with was completely within your expectations. There is nothing to be proud of. Fong Bujue replied. From escaping from the containment room, to eavesdropping on their conversation, to communicating with them through the broadcast, it was all done with your power. I couldn't have done all 3 of those things on my own. His tone sounded sincere. To put it simply, without the support of power, the plan is just a pipe dream. Billy looked at Brother Ju with a strange expression. I didn't expect there would be a moment of humility in you. What is it? Fong Bujue asked. I've always been a practical person. Huh? Hearing that, Billy laughed but did not say anything. In any case, Fong Bujue quickly changed the topic. Just as I predicted, the 7 people have stayed inside the lab and refused to leave. As he said that, he turned into a corner of the corridor. We'll leave them there for now and wait for the 513's effect to show. Then you can go and collect panic energy. Fong Bujue Billy said. You'd better not talk about panic energy. What's wrong? Brother Ju glanced at him. Could it be the way you absorb power is still a secret? That's right, Billy replied. Even those who are more powerful than me don't know that I grow in this way. It sounds like if this secret is found out by the 4 pillar gods and their confidants. Fong Bujue muttered. You'll be in trouble. I can't say in trouble, Billy replied. It's just they may use this to limit the growth of my power. Then here's the question, Fong Bujue said. This kind of critical information, is it really okay to reveal it to me? To be honest, I'm very reluctant to tell you this, Billy replied. But in order to escape from this universe, I have no choice but to tell you. That's true, Fong Bujue sneered. In a situation where your power is limited, you have to constantly collect and use panic energy to escape. If you insist on hiding this setting, it's very likely that it will cause a lot of inconvenience in the actual operation. Furthermore, Billy added, with your intelligence, there's a high possibility that you'll come up with this setting on your own. After weighing the pros and cons, I think it's better to tell you myself. While they were talking, Fong Bujue had already carried Billy to the door of a containment room. Very good. The guards are no longer here. Brother Ju opened the electronic door and looked at the empty space in front of him. I can't believe you thought of coming here to take this gun, Billy said. When I saw this sign in the corridor, I wanted to come in and take it, but at the time, I was still unable to shake off the security personnel, so I had no choice. As Fong Bujue spoke, he had already walked into the laboratory. Logically speaking, this thing shouldn't be in this base. I think the universe we're in should be one of the many parallel worlds where the SCP Foundation exists, so there are many details that are different from the information I know. As he spoke, he had already walked to the middle of the containment room and stood in front of a safe. Project number, SCP-1998, Project Grade, Safe, Special Containment Measures. SCP-1998 should be contained in a locked safe located at redacted site. Experiments related to SCP-1998 can only be conducted in accordance with the following measures. First, an application must be approved by the Foundation's Ethics Committee. They will provide suitable D-class personnel and the corresponding experimental parameters. Second, all information related to the experiment must be personally monitored by a representative of the Ethics Committee and shown to the other members of the committee through closed-circuit television. Third, SCP-1998 cannot be used for purposes other than experimental testing under any circumstances. Any personnel or departments that attempt to use SCP-1998 to distort the free will of D-class personnel for profit will be directly considered for demotion or reassignment. Description: SCP-1998 is a strange-looking handgun. Its creator and manufacturer are unknown. This handgun is controlled by a piston-shaped component directly under the barrel. SCP-1998 does not use any form of ammunition. Instead, it uses an unknown mechanism to fire energy pulses. SCP-1998's energy source is unknown. It does not require any external power source or energy source, although it does require a 5-minute cooldown or reloading interval after each shot. SCP-1998's beam of light is ineffective against all inorganic, inanimate, and non-human materials. It will dissipate after coming into contact with non-human bodies or clothing that comes into direct contact with human bodies. The energy pulses will also dissipate after traveling more than 20 meters. SCP-1998's energy pulses mainly affect the human brain, especially the motor cortex, primary hearing cortex, and hippocampus. No matter where the energy pulses hit, those areas will be affected. SCP-1998's target will experience 3 consecutive effects. First, the target will turn around and sit in front of the SCP-1998's operator. Placing obstacles in the target's path will cause the target's movement to become unstable and unbalanced. Once the target faces the operator while not standing, the target's movement will stop, regardless of whether the target's position is comfortable or not. Second, the target will experience functional paralysis. The target will not be able to freely control their motor organs without making eye contact with the operator. Third, the affected person will carefully listen to and remember everything the controller said during the period of paralysis. Any words conveyed to the affected person during this period of paralysis will be completely and perfectly remembered for the rest of their lives. Any instructions conveyed to the affected person during this period of paralysis will be completed as perfectly as possible after the end of the paralysis. This period of receiving information will last for approximately 19 minutes. After that, the target will regain control of their motor organs. SCP-1998's target will enter a state of continuous shock and psychological trauma for a period of time. This is thought to be related to severe physical pain, described by 2 test subjects as unbearable pain and like being in hell. This pain is caused by exposure to SCP-1998. Addendum 1998-1. SCP-1998 was discovered by a group of hikers walking along the Natchez Highway National Scenic Trail in western Tennessee. It was contained in a cardboard box. The label used a mixture of Latin and Cherokee grammar and was written in the Greek alphabet. The translation of these labels is incomprehensible. Footnote: it has been confirmed through experiments that giving an impossible task, an order that violates the laws of physics, will cause the target to not follow the order and act. However, they will feel regret and low self-esteem because they think they have failed. The target who is given an order that may cause physical discomfort or danger will carry out the order and ignore the potential danger. They will always try to refuse treatment for unhealed wounds caused during the mission. Although this SCP project was classified as safe in terms of its actual effect, if it fell into the hands of someone like Fong Bujue, the destruction of the world was just around the corner. When Brother Ju first saw this entry, his first reaction was this so-called standard mental focus enhancer. Wasn't it the pistol version of Geas? And there were no side effects. Then his second reaction was to have all kinds of thoughts, but those were not detailed here. So it does require a key to open it. After testing it in front of the safe, Feng Bujua mumbled to himself. That's troublesome. Billy continued. For a project like this, the key is either with the manager of this floor or with the manager of this base. And those people are now either in the emergency shelter or the command center. He paused for half a second. Of course, they could have died somewhere in the base. Can't you use your ability to take out the thing inside? Feng Buju asked. Billy hesitated for half a second. I can, but will it consume a lot of energy? Feng Buju guessed the concern. Using the space grafting ability to get you out of my own containment room. Using the ability to sense the area to help you eavesdrop on the security team. And using the mechanical interference ability to help you speak through the radio. These are all very energy-consuming. Billy continued. Other than that, I have to maintain the video and audio signal blocking on B3. Even though before today, I've been dormant for a long time and have accumulated a lot of energy, but okay, I won't bother you anymore. Feng Bujua said, but then again, are you really limited to a large extent? You can still use so many abilities at the same time. It's just some small tricks. Billy smiled bitterly. I'm different from guys like Sam Montier or Labit who have physical combat ability. All my power is reflected in psychokinesis, space power, and various long-range interference abilities. He shook his head. Do you think I'm still that strong? Stop joking. In the main universe, as long as the system allows it, I can even arrange the structure of the scenario on my own. But what about here? I can't even look at the folded space I created. A straight corridor with a loop every few hundred meters. What the hell? So, you're quite ambitious. Feng Bujua narrowed his eyes. That's enough. Instead of testing and mocking me. Billy already knew what his brother Bujua was up to. He exposed him and said, why don't you think about how to open this safe? Chapter 905. Since I have the time to poke fun at you. Feng Bujua replied with a smile. Then, this means that the problem before us is not that complicated. Actually, when Brother Ju touched the box, he had already received the system notification. Requires the key to SCP-1998's safe to open. When a player tried to open a safe in the scenario, there was a big difference between having a notification and not having one. If there was no notification or the notification stated that the box could not be opened, then the item inside the box would have been set as unobtainable by the system. However, if the notification stated that the key was required, then there was a way to open it. Oh, Billy heard that and thought about it for 2 seconds. You've received the system notification? Even though Billy could not hear the notification, he could tell that from Brother Ju's reaction. That's right, Feng Bujua replied. Based on the notification, we should be able to find the key to this safe somewhere. Then, doesn't that bring us back to the problem? Billy asked. As I said earlier, the key has to be with those two, and those two are either enough, you don't have to repeat yourself. I'm not Alzheimer's. Brother Ju cut him off. Let me ask, who is the person responsible for this floor? After today's blackout, have you paid any attention to his movements? Billy thought for a moment and replied, Dr. Jonathan is in charge of this floor. He's a Belgian guy in his 50s, and he's quite accomplished in theoretical physics. He paused. As for what he did after the power outage, I'm not very clear about it. Don't forget, B3 has its own power supply, so the blackout did not affect this place much. However, the broadcast at the time requested everyone to evacuate to the emergency shelter, so the people on this floor were evacuated as well. Are you sure everyone on this floor has safely evacuated? Feng Bujua asked. At least, when you and the security team enter B3, there's no one else on this floor, Billy replied. Regarding their fate after they left B3, I have no idea. Be it the stairwell or the corridor, they're all beyond my sensing range. Feng Bujua still could not get rid of his habit of trying to get information out of other people. Isn't the range of perception expanded in a circle? That's under normal circumstances, Billy replied. But this is the SCP Foundation's D-virtual sector. They are very skilled in the use of spatial technology. In fact, it's far beyond my imagination. He raised his finger and pointed at the ceiling. How high do you think this floor is? 5 meters? 8 meters? Before Brother Jew could answer, he said, don't think that the height you passed in the stairwell is the actual height of each floor. Even I don't know how high each floor is. It wouldn't be surprising if there were abysses between the floors. Oh, no wonder they don't have elevators, Feng Bujue said thoughtfully. In short, I don't know where Dr. Jonathan went. When we evacuated, the floor was full of people. At that time, I didn't have the strength or the reason to accurately find his movements in the crowd. Billy brought the topic back and continued. In addition, even if we now presume that Dr. Jonathan has successfully arrived at the emergency shelter, there's still 2 problems. First, that area is under heavy security. Even if the security personnel there don't know what you look like, you appeared so long after the alarm sounded. You will be arrested or executed. Second, even if you were lucky enough to sneak into the emergency shelter and find Dr. Jonathan, the key may not be with him. Taking a step back, even if the key is with him, how can you seize the key, escape the emergency shelter, and return to B3? That makes sense. Feng Bujue said, then we might as well put this assumption aside for the time being and talk about other possibilities. For example, he touched his chin and said, the doctor was killed by an SCP project member who escaped from another floor during the evacuation, and his body with the key is now lying quietly in the stairwell or somewhere in the freight corridor. Relatively speaking, the situation you describe should be the most optimistic assumption, Billy said. But there's an even more pessimistic assumption. You mean, the key is in the hands of the person in charge of this base? Feng Bujue asked. Yes, Billy replied. And the person in charge of this base, Cosmo, is in a place that is even more heavily guarded than the emergency shelter, the B9 Command Center. In other words, if the key is really in Cosmo's hands, then the possibility of me getting the key and returning to get the gun is very slim, Feng Bujue muttered. Infinitely close to 0, Billy replied. Ah, very good. Feng Bujue smiled. Following this train of thought, this assumption can be eliminated directly. Once he said that, Billy seemed to have realized something. Because the system will not set up an impossible chain of actions, right? Bingo. Brother Jew snapped his fingers. Since the system gave the hint that this chest can be opened, then it must have set up a feasible chain of actions to unlock it. If the difficulty of unlocking this chest is harder than clearing the scenario, then wouldn't this setting be meaningless? Based on what you're saying, the chance of Jonathan dying outside the emergency shelter with the key is very high. Billy followed Brother Jew's train of thought. Yes, Feng Bujue nodded. Of course, based on my understanding of the nightmare mode scenario and my own personality, I believe the chance of Professor Jonathan being in the emergency shelter is very high. Bang, bang, bang. Just as the 2 of them were discussing, suddenly, a series of loud explosions came from afar. In this base with sturdy walls for the sound to travel so far, something very serious must have happened. What's going on? Feng Bujue asked. Could it be that one of the nearby projects has escaped? That's unlikely, Billy replied. As I said, the power outage did not affect this floor. He paused for half a second before adding, the 513 alarm that you heard earlier was caused by my manipulation. At the time, the other projects were still in containment, so they did not go out of control. Then this is... Feng Bujue was confused. Billy thought about it and said, since about 10 minutes ago, I've been focusing my sensory ability on the 7 security team members, and my sensory ability on other areas has basically stopped. He added, presumably, someone or something has sneaked in. Then, remove the monitoring, Feng Bujue said. Change it to a global sensory ability. Ah, I'm doing it now. When Billy said this, he had indeed removed the monitoring on Gore and the others, and changed his sensory ability to a wide area, broad form. However, 2 seconds later, Billy suddenly groaned, and his whole body shook. He seemed to have been hit by some kind of invisible force, and he fell off Feng Bujue's shoulder and fell to the ground. Fortunately, Brother Jew reacted quickly and caught Billy, preventing him from falling to the ground. Hey! Feng Bujue stared at the repulsive puppet in his hand, but there was no change in the latter's expression. What's wrong with you? He shook Billy. Speak. At this time, Billy seemed to have fainted. He was motionless, like a real puppet. What's going on? Feng Bujue's mind raced. Has he been hit by some kind of mental attack? He tucked Billy under his arm and turned to walk out the door. There's something that can use mental power to knock Billy out. As he thought about it, he started to run. This is bad. Once this guy faints, the video and audio surveillance on this floor will be restored, and the security team will be able to contact their superiors. Feng Bujue did not stop running, and he thought to himself, if I'm not wrong, I'm now under surveillance again. If I stay where I am and hesitate, I'll soon be caught again. Bang, bang, bang. As he approached the corner of the corridor, the sound in front of him became louder and louder, and it sounded like a powerful physical attack on the metal wall. Humph! This doesn't sound good. Even so, Feng Bujue had no intention of stopping. He knew very well that in this kind of nightmare, survival was a common thing. Anyway, for now, whether it was in terms of time or space, he did not have any room to maneuver. Bang! Boom! It did not take long for him to reach the corner of the corridor. The closer he got, the more certain Brother Bujue was that it was the sound of battle coming from the front. Furthermore, this was not a battle between normal humans. It was a battle between creatures that were far more powerful than normal humans. For the players of Thriller Paradise, this sound was not unfamiliar. Scenario bosses, high-level players, powerful NPCs, and so on. This was the sound of a battle between superhumans. I wonder what it is. Finally, Feng Bujue rushed out of the corner with a trace of curiosity. But what the heck? Where is this? Blank. A strange blankness. The sound and the image stopped, and the memory was mysteriously cut off. 1 second earlier, Feng Bujue had been running with Billy in his arms, and the next second, he was sitting alone inside a small room of 10 square meters, and his wrists and ankles were handcuffed. What happened? Brother Ju suddenly felt a headache coming on. This was the first time that he had experienced this kind of memory jumping. What did I just see? He mumbled to himself. No, not just now. Since I walked into that corridor, it has been 50 minutes. He seemed to have remembered something, but at the same time, he had forgotten it. This process was like a visible psychological disorientation, and it caused him considerable discomfort and mental pain. Buzz, buzz. Just as Brother Ju was struggling with this strange feeling, the electronic door of the room opened. A woman in a white coat walked in. She was Caucasian, about 40 years old. She wore a pair of black-rimmed glasses, and her curly hair was tied behind her head. Hello, Mr. Austin. After she entered the room, she walked to the seat opposite Feng Bujue and sat down. She greeted Brother Ju. I'm Dr. Mara, and I have a few questions for you. While speaking, she inadvertently glanced at the camera in the corner of the ceiling. Seeing this, Feng Bujue also raised his eyes to look. In this small room that could only accommodate 1 table and 2 chairs, there were actually 2 cameras installed, and they probably had an audio recording function. First of all, please describe the project you saw earlier. Dr. Mara saw that Brother Ju did not express any objection, so she asked directly. What project? Feng Bujue replied. Billy. No, Mara said. It was the one you saw when you took Billy into the corridor. She paused. It was fighting with our agents. I don't know what you're talking about. Feng Bujue replied. I don't think I have witnessed any battle in my memory, although I seem to have heard the sound of battle. Then do you remember what you did during this time? Mara asked again. Feng Bujue also wanted to know the answer to this question. That memory was clearly in his mind, but seemed to be blocked and unreachable. Every time he tried to recall it, he would have an indescribable sense of discomfort. I don't know. He simply gave such an answer and asked in return, You have surveillance, right? You should be the one to tell me this. Mara stared at Brother Ju for a few seconds, but did not respond to his question. Instead, she changed the subject and continued to ask, How did you get here? Do you remember? Feng Bujue remembered this question. I was arrested and sent here by the Nine-Tailed Fox team. Mara's expression changed slightly. Where did you hear the name Nine-Tailed Fox? Feng Bujue sneered and did not answer. Where did you get the information about Project 106 and Project 513? Mara asked again. Ma'am. At this time, Feng Bujue had regained his usual calmness. Why don't we make a deal? The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and he cast a perverted look at the middle-aged woman in front of him. Every time you answer a question of mine, I will answer one of yours. Huh. Dr. Mara put on a fake smile. Even if I'm Jodie Foster, you're not Anthony Hopkins, Mr. Austin. She paused for a moment. Please answer my questions seriously. Otherwise, you will be sent to a more severe interrogation system. It doesn't matter. Feng Bujue leaned back in his chair and replied in an indifferent tone. All right then. Dr. Mara sighed and left her seat. Oh, by the way, doctor. Just as she walked to the door of the room, Brother Ju suddenly spoke again. Do you remember the question you asked me at the beginning? What question? Mara replied. The project number is 55, right? After a few minutes of conversation, Feng Bujue had already cleared his mind and found an SCP project in his mind. It just happened to explain his memory loss. Project number, SCP-055, Project Classification, Keter, Special Containment Measures. The object is kept in a square room built with cement walls of 5 by 5 by 2. 5 meters. The wall thickness is about 50 centimeters. There is a static barrier outside the cement wall. The entrance is blocked by a heavy door of 2 by 2. 5 meters. If it is not kept open, the door will automatically close and lock. Security guards will be placed inside SCP-055's room. It is strongly recommended that all personnel studying other SCP objects keep at least 50 meters away from this room. Please do not question the reasonableness of this request. Description: SCP-055 is a self-sealing secret or anti-mental virus. The physical properties of SCP-055, such as its nature, behavior, and origin, are all independently classified and explained by the following entries. The method of capturing SCP-055 is unknown. When it was captured, and by whom, these are all unknown. The physical properties of SCP-055 are unknown, but it is not indescribable or invisible. It is normal for people to walk into SCP-055's room and observe it, then think, take notes, draw sketches, take pictures, and even video recordings. There are a lot of such records in the files. However, the monitoring personnel said that after such observation, the information would quickly fade from people's minds. When personnel were sent to describe SCP-055, they would feel their consciousness waning and quickly lose interest in the task. When personnel were sent to take sketches of SCP-055's photos, they would not be able to remember what the photos looked like. When personnel were sent to observe SCP-055's CCTV footage, they would be exhausted and lose the relevant memories for about an hour. Who authorized SCP-055 to be sealed in such a room, why it was built, and why it was built in such a way are all unknown. Although SCP-055's room is easy to enter, no one has been able to grasp the relevant knowledge of SCP-055. All of these situations are periodically discovered by random readers of the files. Many people are alerted, but it only lasts for a few minutes before people forget about it. There are a lot of scientific records and files about SCP-055, but there is no way to study them. The Foundation has made more than one attempt to destroy SCP-055 or move it to another location, but for some reason, they all failed. SCP-055 might be a serious threat, and it might have already killed thousands of people, but we do not know about it. It is obvious that it will cause a terrifying mimetic influence, so we have defined it as a Keter class. Document hashtag 055-1. Analysis of SCP-055. The author of the document thought SCP-055 was voluntarily taken in by the Foundation, or was an agent that was remotely controlled. It was placed in the Foundation by another party for the following purposes. 1. Silently observe and interfere with the Foundation's activities. 2. Silently observe or interfere with other SCP areas. 3. Silently observe or interfere with the human world. 4. Silently observe or interfere with other SCP objects. 5. Silently observe or interfere with data block. Any action taken against this potential threat seems to be meaningless, or at least theoretically impossible. Chapter 906. What Project 55? Unexpectedly, Dr. Mara replied, I don't think we have Project 55 at all. Oh, is that so? Phone Bujue smiled and did not say anything else. Dr. Mara looked at him with a puzzled look and then left the room. After the electronic door closed, Brother Jew thought to himself, it seems that the power of this project is particularly obvious when it affects NPCs. When she was talking to me about Project 055, she was unknowingly affected. He tried to pull at the cuffs on his hands and feet, but they could not be opened. This explains why Billy suffered from mental backlash. But there is still a question. He thought, what was the sound I heard in the corridor? Logically speaking, Project 55 would not fight with anything with cognitive ability. What was that sound? His confusion did not last long, because the buzzing sound of the electronic door reopening interrupted his train of thought. Oh, that was fast. Phone Bujue turned to look at the person. It was a man in a black suit who looked to be in his 50s. His face was resolute and his eyes were cold. One look, and you could tell that he was a powerful character who had been through hundreds of battles. Rudy Austin. The man strode over and sat opposite him. He went straight to the point. I don't think that's your real name, is it? Phone Bujue smiled slightly. Oh, before asking for someone else's name, shouldn't you first tell me your... Brother Jew was only halfway through his sentence when the man suddenly raised his arm to deliver a punch. It landed squarely on Brother Jew's stomach, causing him to groan in pain. I am Cosmo. Nice to meet you, Cosmo said coldly as he retracted his hand. Oh, Brother Jew was not angry. After the tightness in his chest eased a little, he laughed. You have a very unique way of greeting. You haven't answered my question, Cosmo said expressionlessly. I am curious. Phone Bujue said. If I don't answer your question, what are you going to do to me? Cosmo replied calmly. First, I'll beat you until your stomach bleeds. Oh, Phone Bujue seemed to be quite relaxed. As a warm-up, Cosmo's second sentence came a second too late. F*CK. Brother Jew's second half of the sentence followed closely behind. Therefore, I suggest you cooperate obediently. Cosmo continued. After all, you will have to answer in the end. Oof. I doubt that. Phone Bujue sneered. Poof. The next second, Cosmo raised his hand and threw another punch. This time, it was aimed at Brother Jew's face. Of course, technically speaking, it was Rudy Austin's face. Hiss! Phone Bujue felt his nose turn sour, and a chill ran down his spine. Soon, 2 streams of blood flowed down his nose and into his mouth. You can pretend to be a tough guy or a lunatic, it doesn't matter. Cosmo said, these tricks won't work on me. He paused. As long as you're still a rational, normal human being, I have a way to make you talk. Phone Bujue licked the blood between his lips. Then let's give it a try. As a result, a series of violent questioning began. On one side, it was an experienced and cold-blooded Level 5 member of the SCP Foundation. As long as it was a mission, he would not hesitate to oppress the old, the weak, the sick, and the disabled. On the other side, it was a player who was fearless, had great endurance, and was not in his own body. He could endure all kinds of atrocities without having to worry about permanent injuries. This combination of one attacker and one sub-user, if they could successfully engage in a duel, it would no doubt be an immortal legend in the interrogation world. Unfortunately, sir, there's a situation here. It's best if you come take a look. Cosmo had not even finished warming up when Agent Stevens' voice came from his walkie-talkie. Okay, I'll be there in a minute. Cosmo picked up the walkie-talkie and then turned to Brother Jew. This is not over yet, Mr. Austin. I'll be back in a minute. Phone Bujue spat blood on the ground and raised his head with a wicked smile. Next time you come, you'd better bring some tools. Interrogation with your bare hands is too monotonous. I'm about to fall asleep. Cosmo stood up and stared at Brother Jew for several seconds. Okay, you wait here. With that, he left the room. Phew, son of a bitch. Once the man left, Brother Jew cursed. He whipped me for a total of 9 minutes and took away 64% of my life points. Thankfully, he stopped to ask me questions, or else I would have lost my life here. As he grumbled, he tried to move his body to confirm his injury. My bones are fine. Light bruises and bruises are nothing. At most, it'll just hurt a little. He glanced at the game menu and did not see any abnormal status like bleeding. His life points and stamina points were recovering at a very slow speed, similar to the physical fitness of a character in a scenario. Based on this situation, I won't die anytime soon, but Phone Bujua mumbled. How am I supposed to escape from this situation? At the same time, outside the interrogation room. What's wrong? Cosmo rushed down the corridor and came to a spacious surveillance room. This was the security surveillance center of B7. Once Cosmo entered the room, Stephen came forward to welcome him. Sir, the rehousing of 106 has been completed. It looks like, after he hunted a certain amount of prey, he entered hibernation mode on his own. Other than that, the rehousing of 173 has been completed as well. You call me out just to report this? Cosmo asked in an impatient tone. If there's nothing else, there's a very important criminal over there that I need to interrogate. Then he turned to leave. No, sir, there's something else. Stephen stopped Cosmo and said, just now, the members of Nine-Tailed Fox have all left the base. Cosmo's expression shifted. Why? Their work hasn't been completed yet, right? About that. At this point, he paused like he was trying hard to remember. The rehousing of Project 055. How are they doing? Air. I've asked that question as well, but they refuse to talk about it, Stephen replied. Other than that, everyone, including me, we don't know if Project 055 has returned to the containment system. In fact, we can't be sure if it has escaped the containment system. All right, Cosmo thought for a while. Since Nine-Tailed Fox wants to leave, let them go. I think they know what they're doing. As he said that, he subconsciously looked up. Right, how's the puppet now? It's been put back into the containment system, Stephen replied. But the rehousing report says it seems to have lost all its abnormal characteristics and has become an ordinary puppet. But at the moment, we can't be sure if this phenomenon is permanent. Cosmo nodded thoughtfully. In my opinion, this could also be a form of disguise. I suspect so too, sir, Stephen quickly said. That puppet is very cunning. It's entirely possible that it could create such an illusion to achieve a certain goal. Cosmo pondered for a few seconds before asking, have Dr. Jonathan and his team members returned to their posts? Yes, they've returned to B3 and are starting work, Stephen replied. That's good. Let's get them to take Billy to the laboratory for testing, Cosmo continued. If Billy really becomes an ordinary puppet, after the test, it will be labeled as neutralized, meaning any item that has been destroyed or has lost its special properties, extra dimensions, or adverse effects. Projects of this level should have a memo that records the previous information of the project. Just take it and destroy it. He adjusted his cuffs and wiped off the bloodstains on them. Anyway, this is a potential key-to-level project. It's best to take this opportunity to get rid of it. Chapter 907. Buzz buzz. Sorry to keep you waiting, Mr. Austin. Following the sound of the electronic door opening, Cosmo once again arrived at the interrogation room, where Phone Bujua was being held captive. And this time, as promised, he had brought along a box of tools. I hope you like this box of torture tools. Cosmo placed the box on the table and opened it carefully. Intentionally or otherwise, he showed the contents of the box to Brother Jew. Other than some classic tools, there are also many new gadgets. He spoke as if he was very familiar with them. For example, this pair of pliers is more effective than any dental clinic's dental equipment. And that thing that looks like a steel needle, perfect for removing eyeballs. He spoke rather proudly, hoping to create some psychological pressure for the person who was about to be tortured. However, Before he could finish his sentence, there was a sudden change. In the blink of an eye, Brother Jew suddenly stood up, both hands stretched out, and with lightning speed, he grabbed the two sharp weapons in the box and stabbed them into Cosmo's hands. Cosmo had not expected the other party to do such a thing, and as a look of shock appeared on his face, his left palm had been pierced through by a steel needle, and his right forearm had been pierced through by a pair of large scissors. The tips of the two sharp weapons were firmly pressed against the metal table, preventing him from pulling his hands out. I really like the things in this box. Thank you for bringing them in for me. The next second, Fong Bujue stood up as he spoke with a sinister smile. From your expression, it seems like you underestimated the situation before you. As he spoke, his strong and powerful hands were still in control of the two sharp weapons, not giving his opponent any chance to escape. You probably thought that a person under surveillance with his hands and feet shackled would not be able to pull any tricks, right? You bastard. Cosmo was also a tough guy. After a few seconds, he had recovered from the pain and shock, and quickly came to a conclusion. Could it be that you used the thumb dislocation technique in front of everyone? Of course, Fong Bujue replied in a genteel manner, and continued. The more skilled a magician is, the better he is at doing things under the eyes of others. The key is to make good use of the psychological blind spot of the audience. As he spoke, he increased the strength of his hands. This room is very narrow. Other than this simple table and chair in the middle, there is no other furniture. And in this small space with my hands and feet shackled tightly and being monitored by two surveillance cameras on both ends of the ceiling. He described the situation in the room briefly and continued, under such circumstances, the people watching me in the surveillance room would be lax because they would subconsciously think that I wouldn't be able to pull any tricks. So, you use the table as a cover to unlock the handcuffs. Katsumo continued the conversation. You guessed right. Fong Bujue snorted coldly. Speaking of which, I still have to thank you, because you beat me up so badly when I made the leaning forward, lying on the table posture, it seemed reasonable. And under the cover of this posture, as long as I didn't make too big of a movement, it was easy to quietly remove the handcuffs under the table. Looks like I guessed right. Cosmo continued, trembling all over. You are a well-trained agent. You are overthinking it, Officer Cosmo. Fong Bujue said with a smile. Professional knowledge and psychological quality can be cultivated by oneself. The key is whether or not you're interested. Before he finished speaking, Brother Jew suddenly launched another sneak attack. He let go of the steel needle that he was holding tightly, and his right hand suddenly reached out and grabbed Cosmo's hair. Bang! In the blink of an eye, he had forcefully pulled and pressed, slamming Cosmo's head heavily onto the table. Ugh! Cosmo groaned in pain and raised his left hand that was strung with steel needles, trying to block Fong Bujue. But, bang, 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 Brother Jew mercilessly struck again and made Cosmo's head come into close contact with the metal table for another 3 times. Cosmo quickly lost consciousness, his upper body lying on the table motionless, and his raised left hand drooped down weakly. Buzz, buzz, just at this moment, the electronic door of the room opened. In less than a minute, the security team that had gathered after seeing the surveillance footage had already rushed through the corridor and into the room. Back off! Fong Bujue turned back and roared. Whoever takes another step forward, I will kill him. Coincidentally, the first security team member to rush in was Gore. Put your hands up, or I will shoot. Fong Bujue's expression did not change, and the sharp weapon in his hand was already pressed against Cosmo's temple. If you shoot, he will die. Put down your weapon. Put your hands up. Gore did not back down. I advise you to stop your futile resistance. Austin, your reaction will not be faster than a bullet. Is that so? At this moment, Fong Bujue smiled. That smile sent chills down the spines of the 3 security team members who had already stepped into the room. Then why don't you try? Brother Jew's excited smile was deeply imprinted in Gore's heart. That smile was full of contempt for life, and anyone who saw that expression would not doubt that the owner of that smile was an outlaw sociopath. He did not care about the lives of others, nor did he care about his own life. This kind of person could happily and cheerfully face mental pressure that ordinary people could not bear, and would not mind gambling on such matters. Are you going to leave or not? After a short stalemate, Fong Bujue spoke again. If not, I will cut something off from his body. He did as he said, and the blade in his hand was already reaching for Cosmo's ear. Wait. Gur quickly stopped him. I understand. I will step back. As he spoke, he gestured to the other two people beside him. The security team members immediately stepped back and retreated into the corridor outside the door, but Gore still leaned half of his body against the door and did not let the electronic door close. The muzzle in his hand was still aimed at Brother Ju. Close the door. Fong Bujue would not let his opponent have his way. The moment Gore stepped back, the situation had already tipped in Brother Ju's favor. I will count to 3, and if this door is still open, I will make a hole in his head. 1, 2. He counted very quickly, and no one had time to react or think. Gore had no choice but to take another 2 steps back, and the electronic door quickly closed by itself. Phew! At this moment, Fong Bujue heaved a sigh of relief. That was fast. If it had taken a few seconds longer to subdue Cosmo, I would have died here. Thinking was just thinking, but his hands did not stop moving. After quickly finding the appropriate tools in the suitcase, he used his skillful lockpicking skills to open the shackles on his feet. At this point, he had finally regained the ability to move freely. Then, Brother Ju walked to the opposite side of the table and began to search Cosmo's body. Not long after, he had found everything in his opponent's pockets. Walkie-talkie, sunglasses, handkerchief, level 5 access card. Fong Bujue searched for a long time and found that Cosmo had very little on him. TSK. Not even a pistol. He grumbled and then picked up the walkie-talkie. Without caring about the frequency, he pressed the switch and said, "Open the door." His method really worked. In less than 5 seconds, the door to the room opened again. Obviously, the people outside had received his message. This time, Brother Ju, who had unlocked his shackles, hid behind Cosmo, using him as a human shield. Yes. It's you, give me your pistol. He pressed a sharp weapon against Cosmo's carotid artery and shouted at the person beside Gore. Hearing this, the person immediately turned to look at Gore. Gore hesitated for 2 seconds, but still nodded at him. Thus, the person took out his gun from the holster and slowly walked forward. Don't move. The person had just taken half a step when Fong Bujue shouted, "Put the gun on the ground and push it over gently." Chapter 908. Brother Ju had a hostage in his hands, and this hostage was the person in charge of the base. So the other party did not dare to act rashly for the time being and could only do as he said. Yes, just like that. Slowly, put the gun on the ground. Fong Bujue looked at the other party's movements and commanded, "Okay now, push the gun close to the ground." He had no doubt learned this from the police movies, but it was quite practical. Soon, the gun slid across the metal floor and slid to Fong Bujue's feet. "Oomph. Very good. Now please leave." Brother Ju picked up the gun and ordered, "I will contact you through the walkie-talkie when needed." Listen, Austin, you better know what you are doing and the consequences of doing so. Before leaving the electronic door, Gore said to Fong Bujue very sternly. But this level of intimidation was like a fart to Brother Ju. It was okay to listen, but to smell it seriously was asking for trouble. "Of course I know what I am doing, and I know the consequences," Fong Bujue said, raising the gun and aiming at the few security guards at the door. "But you don't seem to understand the situation." Bang! He suddenly fired a shot at the door. The bullet did not hit anyone, but it made the people outside the door break out in a cold sweat. "Bastard! What are you trying to do?" Gore immediately cursed. "I want to use my actions to illustrate a fact." Fong Bujue continued, "That is, I don't mind using any means, any reason to kill anyone here." He paused, giving them some time to think. "You have 2 choices. First, Don't care about Cosmo's life or death. Kill me and him together. Second, put away those meaningless threats and continue to play the hostage game with me. At this point, he blew out a wisp of white smoke from the muzzle and looked at Gore at the door and the camera in the corner of the room. Deputy Captain Gore, and all of you who are listening to me through the monitoring device, we all know very well that no matter the outcome today, I will most likely die. And the problem you need to consider and solve is... His eyes swept across the faces of the people at the door like a knife. How many people will die with me? And what is my real purpose? He used words and actions to perfectly portray the image of a crazy and rational outlaw. As the weaker party, he created a great deal of psychological pressure for the people of the Foundation. Whether you want to play or not, the game has begun. 2 seconds later, Fong Bujue continued, "Play your roles well, and let me have some fun." After that, he raised his gun again and pointed at Gore and the others at the door. "Understand? Boys." After he finished speaking, the security team members hesitated for a moment, then quietly left the room and the electronic door closed again. Almost at the moment when the door closed, Fong Bujue pushed away Cosmo, the human shield. Then, Brother Ju moved a chair to the corner of the room, stood on it, and smashed the camera with the butt of his gun. More than 10 seconds later, he did the same thing and destroyed the camera in the other corner of the room. After that, Brother Ju walked to Cosmo's side and moved him to the chair. Then he used a tool to unlock his handcuffs and handcuff them to Cosmo's wrists. Slap, 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 slap. A moment later, Cosmo was awakened by a series of slaps. Ugh, damn it. He couldn't tell whether his head or face hurt more, but it didn't feel good. "I'm sorry, if the situation allows, I would also like to wake you up by splashing you with water or something more gentle." Seeing that Cosmo had regained consciousness, Brother Ju immediately mocked him with an unapologetic tone and expression. "You bastard." English wasn't as rich in swear words as Chinese, and there were only a few of them when translated. Therefore, Cosmo's unkind words were harmless to Brother Ju. "I swear, I'll cut you up with my own hands." Brother Ju heard this and laughed lightly. "You're not young anymore, you should understand. For things that you're not confident of, it's best not to swear." He waved the gun in his hand. "Now, whether you can survive from my hands is a problem, but you're thinking about how to take revenge on me. Is that okay?" Cosmo wasn't stupid. He looked at the walkie-talkie on the table and quickly deduced where Brother Ju's gun came from. Starting the hostage drama. He sneered. "If you think that playing this game with us, the Golden Foundation, will work, then you're dead wrong." Fong Bujue directly repeated his opponent's line and continued, "I don't need you to tell me this." He said calmly, "I know very well that in the face of the Golden Foundation's interests, anyone can be sacrificed. Not just the person in charge of the base, even if it's the entire base. If the situation is urgent enough, they can all be sent away with a nuclear bomb." You really are one of the splitters of chaos, aren't you? Cosmo already had that suspicion. After this period of interaction, he had basically confirmed that Brother Ju was a well-trained agent who had infiltrated this facility as a D-level agent. "You're free to think who I am," Fong Bujue said. "I don't care about that at all." As he spoke, he opened a briefcase on the table. "I just hope you can answer the few questions I'm going to ask you honestly." Cosmo laughed. "You want to interrogate me?" "Yes," Fong Bujue replied calmly. "That's obvious." "Kid." Cosmo's expression turned cold. "Do you know who you're talking to?" There was a reason for his rather pretentious attitude. Before he joined the Golden Foundation, Cosmo had participated in many secret military operations that were not officially recognized and had been captured twice. Although he had never seen a tiger stool or pepper spray, he had experienced electrocution, water torture, whipping, soldering iron, and so on. In short, whether it was the interrogator or the one being interrogated, Cosmo was experienced and battle-hardened. Therefore, he was not afraid of Brother Ju's deterrence at all. He was fully confident that he could drag this out, until the personnel outside came to rescue him. "You seem to be very confident." As Fong Bujue spoke, he had already started to pick out the tools in the briefcase. But I'll make you change your mind soon. 15 minutes later, just as the Golden Foundation members outside the interrogation room were about to use the hypnotic gas to force an attack, a voice suddenly came from the public frequency of the walkie-talkie. Is Agent Stephen there? It was undoubtedly Brother Jew's voice. After a short silence, Stephen's voice rang out as well. I'm Stephen. After Mr. Cosmo was captured, you were the temporary person in charge of this base, right? Phone Buju asked. That's right. Stephen tried to make his voice and tone as calm as possible. If you have any requests, just let me know. But before that, I need to confirm. Don't worry, Cosmo is still alive. Brother Jew interrupted him. You'll see him soon. He raised his voice slightly. Now, please listen to my request clearly. He paused for half a second. Immediately get Dr. Jonathan from B3 to bring Billy to see me. Remember, it must be Dr. Jonathan, no one else. There was another silence about 20 seconds later. Stephen replied, I'm sorry, but I can't agree to your request, Mr. Austin. His tone was firm. Because you destroyed the surveillance camera, we can't be sure if Officer Cosmo is still alive. Even if he is indeed alive, letting Dr. Jonathan into the interrogation room is tantamount to providing you with a new hostage. In addition, given that you were alone with Billy the marionette the last time, there was a situation where you moved across space. We won't provide you with a potential escape method. Sure enough, it won't work. Phone Bujue was not surprised by this result. Then there's no other way. Before he finished speaking, he opened the door of the interrogation room with Cosmo's level 5 access card. Bang, bang, bang. Before the electronic door was fully opened, Phone Bujue had already opened fire. Unsurprisingly, there were 2 security guards with guns in the corridor outside the door, and they were all taken down to the ground without any warning. Stephen witnessed this scene through the surveillance camera in the corridor and immediately exclaimed, Your people can't do it. Phone Bujue walked forward and spoke into the walkie-talkie in a relaxed tone. Because I was talking on the public channel, their attention was diverted, and they took it for granted that I wouldn't take action during the negotiation. All teams in B7, head to the North Corridor. Stephen ignored Brother Jew's provocation. He did not care about changing the channel and immediately shouted the order in the channel. To be honest, you can't do it either, Stephen. Phone Bujue's provocation did not stop there. Only 2 people guarding the door. You're underestimating me. When he said this, he casually shot the head of a security guard who was still lying on the ground. As a commander, you're treating your men's lives like child's play. All teams, pay attention. Open fire when you see the target. Stephen responded to Brother Jew's behavior with a roar. Phone Bujue, on the other hand, was unfazed. He bent down to pick up an assault rifle and swiftly shot down the few surveillance cameras in the corridor. A minute later, several team members led by Gore rushed into the corridor. But there was no one in the corridor at this moment, only 2 corpses lying on the ground. Be careful. Gore was very alert. As soon as he entered the corridor, he raised his hand to signal the team members behind him to stop temporarily while he cautiously moved forward with his gun raised. Don't pretend. I know it's you, Gore said as he approached the corpses. You destroyed the surveillance camera so that you could drag the corpses into the interrogation room, then change into the corpses' clothes and lie here to ambush us. As he said this, he had already walked up to one of the corpses. Well, not this one. As Gore approached, he saw the blood seeping out of the corpse's mask and shirt. He immediately thought to himself, then it's you. With this in mind, he suddenly turned the muzzle and aimed at the other corpse. Okay, you've been seen through. Raise your hands and surrender, Gore said to the other corpse. But the corpse did not respond after a few seconds of stalemate. Gore wavered. What's going on? Did I guess wrong? After a moment of hesitation, he took a step forward and tore off the mask of the corpse in front of him. It turned out that it was indeed a security team member, not Rudy Austin. Then, Gore turned around and tore off the mask of another person, but it was also a real security team member, and it was obvious that he was completely dead. Tisk. Gore snorted. I thought you were going to play some tricks. So you just came out to kill 2 people and then hid in the room At this moment, he recalled his reasoning again and suddenly felt that it was unreliable. Originally, it was very difficult to change into a full set of security team members' equipment in such a short time. Besides, moving the corpse would definitely leave behind bloodstains, but there were no bloodstains left behind by dragging in the corridor in front of him. After dealing with this kid a few times, I'm also a little paranoid, Gore thought to himself. Actually, he's not that smart. While thinking, he had already opened the electronic door of the interrogation room. With a buzzing sound, the scene in the interrogation room was displayed before everyone's eyes. They saw Cosmo's body lying in the corner of the room, and there was a large pool of blood under his body. The slackened expression on his face and the hideous wounds on his body were a ghastly sight to behold. If it were not for the fact that the security team members were all wearing masks, they would have already smelled the blood in the room. What's going on? When Gore recovered from the shock, he immediately realized a problem. Where did he go? The interrogation room was only so big, and there was no place to hide. At a glance, it was clear that there was only one corpse in the room. Where did Austin go? At the same time, in the emergency safe passage. How convenient. A secret passage for level 5 and O5 personnel. Fong Bujua held the gun that he had snatched and walked leisurely in the narrow corridor. Let's go straight to B3's research room from here. It turned out that a few minutes ago, after Brother Ju had killed the 2 security team members guarding the door and destroyed the surveillance cameras, he had directly entered the emergency safe passage through the secret door hidden behind the corridor wall. As for how he knew about the existence of the passage, it was naturally through the interrogation. Cosmo was indeed a tough guy, and he had withstood Fong Bujua's hands for a full 15 minutes. What happened during this time was not suitable for people of any age to see, nor was it suitable to be described in any words. For a normal human, this was already a miracle. After 15 minutes, Cosmo had confessed everything, and his only request at that time was a quick death. Therefore, Fong Bujua used the information that he already knew and quickly came up with a plan to escape, and when the plan was finalized, he helped Cosmo. To be safe, before Brother Ju took action, he used the walkie-talkie to communicate with Stephen. This action actually had 2 purposes. First, as he had said earlier, to distract the 2 people at the door and make use of the inertia of not taking action while negotiating to facilitate his breakthrough. Second, was to make use of Stephen to confirm the location of Jonathan and Billy. Now, he had successfully entered the emergency safe passage that only level 5 and O5 personnel knew about. This passage was also made using space technology, and it was accessible in all directions. He could be like Mondo, go wherever he wanted. After only 5 minutes, Brother Ju arrived at the secret passage that was separated from B3's research room by a wall. He knew that there was no time to lose. If he delayed, Billy might be chopped into pieces and used as firewood. Therefore, he held the assault rifle and opened the secret door, appearing in the research room. Don't move. Brother Ju's first sentence was like a bandit's line, but the second sentence was like a hero's. Let go of the puppet. As the saying went, it was better to come early than to come at the right time. The moment Fong Bujua appeared, Dr. Jonathan was about to put Billy into a strange machine. You are. Looking at Brother Ju, who was wearing a level D personnel's uniform but holding a gun, Jonathan quickly guessed his identity. Which one is Dr. Jonathan? Fong Bujua immediately asked in a loud voice. The researchers did not answer his question, but the human's first reaction betrayed them. As Brother Ju asked the question, he also observed the expressions of these people. Just from their eyes when they heard the name Jonathan, Fong Bujua locked onto his target. The next second, Brother Ju's muzzle aimed at Jonathan. Hello, Doctor. Jonathan knew that his identity was exposed. He forced himself to be calm and replied, If you want this puppet, I'll give it to you. Please don't hurt. Stop wasting time. Fong Bujua did not allow the man to finish. It is not up to you to give orders. He moved the barrel of the gun. Get the puppet and come over here, quick. This time, the doctor showed an obvious look of fear. He stood there hesitantly. "I'll give you 5 seconds." Feng Bujue continued in a cold tone. "If you don't stand in front of me in 5 seconds, I'll start shooting at your colleagues." "No, don't do this." I'll come over." At this point, Dr. Jonathan had no choice but to do as Brother Ju said. However, just as he walked toward Feng Bujue, a group of security guards rushed in from the outside door of the research room. "Don't move." The one who led the team this time was the security guard named Dan. "Austin, you're surrounded. Surrender obediently." Chapter 909. Tut, 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 tut. The assault rifle responded to Dan's order with a barrage of bullets. Feng Bujue pulled the trigger and rolled toward Dr. Jonathan. "Idiot, who's going to surrender?" Brother Ju not only resisted fiercely with his actions, but also with his words. "If you have the time to shout, why don't you just open fire?" Before he finished speaking, he had already rushed to Dr. Jonathan's side. With one hand, he held the ladder in front of him. "Bastard, let go of the doctor." Dan and the security team raised their guns and aimed, but they couldn't shoot at the risk of killing the hostage. After all, Dr. Jonathan was a level 4 researcher. He was also an important asset of the Foundation. Before they received a clear order from their superiors, these security personnel had no right to shoot him. "That's another nonsense, Dan." Feng Bujue had already recognized Dan's voice. He sneered wantonly. "If I would do as you say, why would I take a King hostage?" After that, Brother Ju turned to look at Dr. Jonathan and whispered, "Doctor, for the safety of your colleagues and yourself, please cooperate with me as much as possible. Do you understand?" At this time, Dr. Jonathan was holding Billy with one hand, and his other shoulder was held tightly by Brother Ju. He couldn't break free. He knew little about the D-class personnel behind him, but from what he had seen and heard during this period of time, there was no doubt that this was an outlaw who killed without batting an eyelid. "Oh, okay," Dr. Jonathan replied with trepidation. "Please don't ask me for anything." Feng Bujue interrupted him. "I say you do." He gave clear instructions in an unquestionable tone. His attitude revealed his incomparable confidence and calmness. At this moment, including Dan, subconsciously, everyone present had recognized the fact that Brother Ju was the one in control of the situation. Therefore, after a brief confrontation, the security team watched as Feng Bujue used the human shield to retreat all the way back to the emergency safe passage. 2 conditions had to be met when entering and exiting the passageway for Level 5 and O5 personnel. Firstly, you had to know the location of the secret door. Secondly, you had to have a pass of the corresponding level. As Feng Bujue was holding the only Grade 5 access card in the base, usually there would be other Grade 5s or O5 personnel moving around. But today, Cosmo was the only Grade 5 personnel left in the base. The moment he retreated into the passageway, the security personnel once again fell into a passive position. "Sir, this is Lab E3. Austin escaped into the tunnel again." Dan could only report helplessly as he watched the tunnel close. "Damn it!" Stephen, who was in B7, cursed angrily. "We're still a step too late." As the temporary commander of the base, his response was already pretty good. After receiving Gore's report, Stephen immediately guessed Brother Ju's escape method. Although he did not want to believe that his respected Officer Cosmo would reveal information about the emergency safe passage, information that even Stephen did not know about, he calmly analyzed the various possibilities and made the correct judgment. Based on this deduction, Stephen immediately thought, Austin had mentioned Dr. Jonathan and Billy the marionette earlier, and he seemed to know the location of the 2 very well. 2 more pieces of information could be obtained from this. First, this supported the fact that Officer Cosmo had already confessed. Second, Austin's main goal did not seem to be to escape, but the marionette and the doctor. Of course, they could not rule out the possibility that this was just a smoke bomb released by Austin before he escaped, to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Thinking of this, Stephen immediately ordered the team closest to Lab B3 to rush over. Even if this was really a diversion, they had to be on guard. But unexpectedly, Brother Ju still succeeded in the end. 3 minutes later, in the emergency safe passage. Listen to me, Mr. Austin. Jonathan walked in front of the gun, holding the marionette. If you want to escape with this marionette, I won't stop you. I'm just a researcher. I don't intend to. Okay. Fong Bujue did not want to listen to this. He interrupted in an impatient tone. Don't waste your breath, doctor. I'll decide when I'll let you go. I'm still holding you hostage, which means that you're still useful. So, please keep your mouth shut. Speak when I need you to, so that you don't make me angry, understand? The more he listened to him, the more he sounded like a professional criminal. Jonathan didn't want to deal with such a person. He had neither the courage nor the ability. Therefore, he decided, okay, I understand. As they spoke, they came to a secret exit. Fong Bujua looked at the sign next to the door and used the access card to open the door. Please walk in front, doctor. Brother Ju stood next to the open door, turned around, and pointed the gun at Jonathan. Jonathan swallowed his saliva and walked through the secret door with uneasy steps. Brother Ju followed closely behind and walked out of the passage. Please open the safe, doctor. As soon as they entered the room, Fong Bujua ordered. At this moment, they were in the room where Brother Ju and Billy came earlier. It was the room where SCP-1998 was stored. Dr. Jonathan naturally recognized this room because he was the key keeper of the project in this room. The doctor wanted to ask Brother Ju what he was going to do with this thing, but he thought for a moment and immediately swallowed the question. Jonathan was a highly educated person with a high IQ. Even if his EQ was low, he should be able to guess Brother Ju's intention. Obviously, the act of kidnapping him to open the safe itself indicated at least 3 things. 1. He knew the purpose of this project. 2. He also knew who had the key to this project. 3. He knew what he was going to do with this project. Doctor, just as Jonathan stood in front of the safe and was about to take out the key, Fong Bujua suddenly said in a cold tone, "If I were you, I wouldn't do that." This sentence seemed to come out of nowhere, but it made Jonathan instantly freeze in place. The blood in his body seemed to have frozen, and a chill went straight to his heart. Only Jonathan himself knew. 2 seconds ago, when his hand touched the key, an idea flashed through his mind. However, while he was still hesitating whether or not to take action, Fong Bujua's words had already entered his ears. Chapter 9-10. On May 1st, 1886, an unprecedented strike broke out on the streets of Chicago. The workers who had been cruelly exploited and oppressed for years stood up bravely to defend their rightful rights, the 8-hour working day. Even though this struggle was brutally suppressed, the massacre at Momo Market, the chain reaction that followed united the working class of the world, and they won the final victory. May Day, as the common holiday of the international proletariat, has a profound meaning that affects us to this day. Today, some of the rights that we take for granted are the result of the hard work and sacrifice of our ancestors. As workers living in the great new socialist China, we cannot let the blood of our ancestors flow in vain. Therefore, as an example, as a semi-freelancer, I gave myself a holiday on Labor Day. Okay. Please put down your middle fingers and calm down. Actually, I just want to clarify one thing. Labor is glorious, that is true, but there is nothing shameful about taking a legal break. When you have time, you can read novels, play games, or go out for a walk. That is not a bad thing. As the saying goes, life is too rushed. If you forget about work, there is no pain, and you leave work behind in the wind. But the holiday is over, and you still have to do what you need to do. Let's move on to the monthly trailer. Since I have rambled on for so long, this month's trailer will be quite short. I'm afraid I will be charged if it is longer. The ultimate rescue with the SCP Foundation as the background is still ongoing, but it does not look like it will last for too long. It should be finished within this week. After that, it will be delayed again and again. Oh no, it will be the prelude to the tournament for the best S2. In S2, other than Underworld Frontline, the players from other gaming studios will also have more scenes, and it will be shown soon. Stay tuned. P.S. The comic for Thriller Paradise has been released, and I have read it. Personally, I think it is not bad. I hope that everyone will read it as if it is an adaptation and not get too hung up on the authenticity. After all, if the comic is really the same as the novel, why not read the novel? You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.